Here we are, chopping it up with Dave and Spacco.
At the Northmead Midnight Butcher Shop. Hey guys, if you like what you hear, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you can receive updates on when new episodes drop.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Northmead Midnight Butcher Shop. Today we're sitting down with James Sweeney, the founder of Coach Sweeney Performance. James has been a high-level athlete himself now for many years, and for about the last 20 years has been coaching athletes in strength and conditioning and triathlon anywhere from ages 12 to 70, enriching their lives through mental and physical fitness. So James, welcome to the Northmead Midnight Butcher Shop.
Lucas, thank you for having me. Dave, great to meet you.
Absolute pleasure, mate. I know from personal experience, you've changed a lot of athletes' lives and brought them from absolute starter to all the way through to achieving their goals, racing Ironman and anywhere in between. So I wanted to get you on here, talk about the positive effects you've had there. But please, let's have a chat about your life. What made James Sweeney the man he is today. Mate, tell us where you grew up.
So, I suppose I've had a fairly varied life. I was born in Scotland in 1970, and my parents at the time decided to emigrate to South Africa in 1970, late 74, early 75. So I got there just before I turned 5. Then shortly after that, my dad decided he wanted to go back to Scotland, and my mum decided she didn't. So they got divorced, and her and I stayed in South Africa, and my mum remarried to the person I call my dad, because he's raised me and he's probably had one of the biggest influences on my life. We're in South Africa until most of my schooling life. Just normal kid growing up over there. And then 1987, we decided, with the way apartheid was going and the way the volatility within the country, my parents felt they wanted to get out. So the decision was either Australia or America. I had a brother in each country at that stage. So they chose Australia, and we came out here, and I finished my high schooling last 2 years over here. I've been here now obviously happily ever since, and started my own family, and they've sort of rolled along. In amongst all that, I've had a bunch of different jobs, from riding horses at El Cabello Blanco and Notre Dame as a trick rider and a stable hand and all that, through to corporate in the printing industry. And during that period, I'd started a bit of coaching on the side. As things rolled along, became a coach full time, and then became an independent coach. Yeah.
Tell us what it was like growing up in South Africa. I mean, that was certainly South Africa had a checkered history from a global perspective at that point. I think there was times there where were they banned from the Olympics?
There was a lot of sanctions placed on South Africa during that apartheid era. And I suppose if you're looking at it from afar, you could probably see it through that lens and go, it's justified, But without being too political, there were some atrocities over here in relation to the Aboriginal population.
Yep.
Particularly in our further past history. But growing up in South Africa, lived in the suburbs outside Johannesburg. My early years of primary school, I went to an all-white school. From year 5 into my early years of high school, I went to a boarding school, and that was a multiracial boarding school. So, some of my best mates were coloureds and Indigenous black people from South Africa. it was all normal, like we didn't really think about anything other than obvious things like I couldn't go stay at their place overnight because there's no way a white guy could be sleeping over in Soweto.
Wow.
But by the same token, they weren't allowed to stay at my place overnight because there was rules around that. But through the day, we still caught up where we could. And, so whilst that racial factor existed to a large extent at a political and government level, I think in day-to-day South Africans, that wasn't necessarily the case.
Yeah.
I think the general population just rolled along and, we employed a maid, and whilst some people might think that sounds demeaning, but that was paid employment for her, and she had somewhere to stay while she was working. She'd go back to her family when on the day she wasn't working, so that was her job. It wasn't like she was working for free. We had a couple of maids in that period, and they were partially raising me because both my parents worked to make ends meet.
Well, kids don't know about racism until we teach them.
Yeah, look,
kids
it's
aren't racist,
and they learn from subtle things, I suppose, that are said in the household or the way people are treated. And for me personally, I don't say I'm racist. I think I judge people on them as an individual.
I should clarify too. When I say we teach them, I just mean adults, not like Dave and Spacco are actively trying to teach all the kids how to be racist. I just mean just adults teach children.
I normally will say I'm not racist. I hate everyone equally.
Yeah.
So, but I think we all probably have some bias, just maybe culturally the way certain cultures are, races are, that maybe rubs you the wrong way, whereas others you just click with. So I think we've all got some kind of little biases there. But when people try to shut a conversation down by saying you're being racist, I really challenge them on that.
Yeah.
I'll call them out on it because I think that this whole I'm offended kind of society mentality is bollocks to me. Like I go, just because I'm saying something that's a hard truth and it's uncomfortable for you doesn't mean it's invalid.
Do you think it's people trying to negate having a discussion about it?
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know how to counter your whatever discussion or argument you've just put forward. I don't know how to counter it. So if I just say I'm offended,
for me, very much.
Shut up.
And I see this, like the whole political correctness thing. I go, all it does is stifle honest conversation, and I'm a fan of uncomfortable conversations because I think that's where you break through the facades that everyone's got up, and you actually can bore down into people's souls and potentially help them in whatever's holding them back or making them feel insecure or unworthy or whatever, and I just think there's so many layers there, and all of those layers are glued together by this whole, you can't ask hard questions, you can't say these things, but for me, and I grew up in a country where obviously there was a lot of racial, I suppose, tension at times. And that wasn't just black on white. There's a lot of black on black racial tension within different tribes, so...
Well, in America, I don't know the stats exactly, but they black on black murder is by far the most amount of deaths.
Well, mate, you think in certain countries you have classes, middle class, lower class, blah, blah, blah. In South Africa you have tribes,
Yep.
And mate, the Zulu, mate, they're the warrior tribe. They don't bow down to anyone. So when the Tutsi or a Xhosa is somebody who's going to be in charge, they're like, fuck that.
Yeah, right.
So there's, there's all these factors that if to the uninitiated you're never going to see.
Yeah.
So and you got to bore down. And mate, when I got married, my best man at my wedding was 6'2" Maori, and mate, he was full gangster man, loved his Public Enemy and his niggas with attitude and everything, and he was hardcore. And you go, how's a white South African essentially hanging out with this big Maori boy, But mate, we're still best mates to this day, and he knows I got his back anytime he needs. And so for me, it's always been able to judge people on who they are.
Yep.
And I think you got to call the collective out when they get it wrong in relation to trying to tell you you've done something when you haven't, just because it's uncomfortable for them.
That's a good way to live, man. That's a good way to live. So from South Africa to Australia, and you started year 11. I think I think you were saying earlier on in conversation you repeated that year so that you could start fresh.
Yeah, like
in year 11.
we had no idea what the curriculum would be in Australia if it was different to the same level in South Africa. So I had to give myself a little bit of buffer to get around it, and also, trying to settle into school and everything, new country. So yeah, repeated year 11, did year 12, and then went into the working world, so to speak. My first job straight out was because when I was living in South Africa, I did show jumping and that for probably eight or so years. So my first job out of school, I went and got a job as a stable hand at Notre Dame, which is was owned by Emmanuel Margolin back in the day, and like a zoo there with lions and tigers and all sorts of other animals, and he also was massive on Andalusian dancing stallions. So he had a whole bunch of horses, and they used to do horse shows and all that. So I started there as a stable hand, ended up as one of the riders, and then as the main trick rider for them at the time. So jumping over and off horses and flipping and all that. So couldn't do any of it today, but yeah, that was the thing. And I did that for just over a year, and then went and got a job as doing a little bit of door-to-door sales and
selling what?
Vacuum cleaners, actually.
What was the main vacuum cleaner?
I can't even think anymore what it was. Kirby. It was
Kirby.
A Kirby, yeah. So, like we actually had one as a family in South Africa. We brought it with us, and so I rated it. So I thought,
you trying to sell me a vacuum, mate?
That's it, yeah.
You don't want to sell this guy anything.
Nah.
He's going to ask you more questions than we've got time for today. He's going to want to study the warranty document, and then he's going to go on the internet and compare it with everything else.
That's it. So I didn't do your research. But yeah, so one day, mate, I came in a guy's house to try and sell him a vacuum cleaner. His name was Kersey Contractor, Indian guy. And I went through my whole spiel and everything. And he said to me, he goes, "Look, James," he goes, "I don't want to buy a vacuum cleaner for you, but do you want a job?" He goes, "I think you'd be really good in our business." So he teed up an interview with HR people, and that was me. I was in the printing industry. Got into working for Coach Brothers. They were based at Auburn, and just started in the lab. Everyone else that was starting at the same time as me had uni degrees and everything, and I was just like, you're out of school. I was riding horses, and now I'm here. But they saw something he saw something in me, and he was a real mentor for me during that those early years. And he was unreal. He called a spade, and he taught me a lot. And one quote he gave me that stayed with me forever. He said, "You don't have to be liked, but you have to be respected if you want to be successful in this business." So, and I went from that to technical and sales and customer service, and had a really great 11 years with them. And then one of my colleagues who was in charge of a separate division, he moved on, and then he headhunted me to their business, and then I joined a business that was run by the Wood family out of Melbourne, Intergraphic Technologies it was called at the time. It's now Kiwo. But they gave me some great grounding and some opportunities that I'm forever grateful for from them. And then, that was like 2014. Yeah, early 2014. I got approached by athlete I used to coach a little bit back in the day, Peter Vickery, who was starting up a big gym in Penrith, and he wanted a triathlon focus. So he had asked around, and my name had popped up with different people. We came to an arrangement, and I became a full-time coach. Up until that point, I'd always been coaching on the side, just like a little side job and a little bit of slush funds, as we all have.
Bicycle fund.
Yeah, bicycle fund and running shoes and stuff like that. But then I jumped in there, and I was there for 6 and a bit years.
Far out, that time went quick.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, so 2014 started there, and then 2020 COVID was a game changer.
Yeah.
For everyone, I suppose, to a large extent, but certainly for that industry and for me as a person, it was it was a massive change. And you know, that first COVID lockdown, I think none of us really knew what the hell was going on, like how serious was this thing, and you know, we all had to be in our houses and weren't allowed to do anything, and that rocked me. Like I was so used to interacting with people for my entire life. You know, no matter what job I'd had, I'd dealt with people.
Yep.
And my job was to try and make them better or make their jobs better or their business successful. Play a part in doing that. And I went from that to basically sitting on a lounge talking to no one.
Yeah, wow.
My wife is a school teacher, and you know, she's now in an executive role, so she's a deputy principal now. At the time, she was an assistant principal, and because all this teaching went to online,
Yep.
she was one of few staff that had to go into work every day still to try and coordinate from the school all the online learning. So yeah, she was off every day, you know. So I'd get up and I'd just be on my own. You know, Jack was
no real purpose.
Nothing at all, mate. And you know, and I've never been somebody to talk about my own issues, which there's plenty. We've all got demons, but they just stay inside. I just deal with them, always have. But the fact that I'd no outlet to get energy from, you know, if I'm helping somebody else, I get a lot of energy from that. You know, had Lucas with his dense legs learning how to swim, you know, to see him float down 50 metres was like, you know.
There's 10 minutes of laughter every morning.
It was unreal, you know.
3 times a week.
When was that? That was just prior to COVID? Or?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what he's saying, losing the
all
ability
of that,
to laugh at me in the pool 3 times a week. That really knocked him around.
It really did, mate. It was nothing to do with the 50 other people I never saw. It was just big spacko, couldn't see him.
Put your band on, mate.
That's it. But yeah, so like, you know, so that was... Like I really struggled there. I was like, you know, probably in a pretty bad headspace all round, because so much was unknown, and I'm a bit of like to know the big picture, like to have a bit of routine and structure. You know, when I'm building programs, they're 18 months out with some kind of setting, so we started to understand things. So it's the same for me. I just went bang, you know, and then so that was the March. I think March is when the official lockdown happened.
I struggle with the timeline.
Yeah, it was March. It was late March, and then early May. I got a call from.
When was that? 2020.
2020. Yeah, so I got a call from Pete, and he called me in for a meeting, which I thought was to discuss how we were going to come back into doing stuff, and we could. And he basically sat me down and said, "We're closing up the triathlon aspect, and you're done." Yeah. Literally, the meeting went for like 2 minutes. You know, he didn't even take one sip of his tea, and I said nothing. I didn't know what to say. So this is where I think, as we spoke earlier, Lucas, is where I was different to you. Like I was struggling early, and the moment that happened, I got clarity around, well, I've got to do something now. I've got to act. So I went and spoke to a really good mate of mine, Al Bentley, who also is the manager of the Nepina Aquatic Centre, and I said to him, look, there's a situation, you know, something, this is what's going on. You know, I'll obviously come back. I still want to be able to coach, blah, blah, blah. So Al offered me an opportunity to hire lane space from him out of the pool. Went home, spoke to my wife. So I actually spoke to Al before I'd spoken to anyone else because she was at school, obviously, teaching. I didn't want to interrupt her. And then, I spoke to her that night and said, you know, well, there's 2 choices here. I go back into corporate, try to get back into the printing industry because it's obviously my background and I know it well. I said, or we take a punt and I go full-time as a coach. And, you know, with her blessing.
I'm sure she knows you well enough that wouldn't have been a good going back into corporate.
Yeah, look, mate.
Like, how did that weigh up? Like,
I think
you had a set of scales and you were.
She was. I wanted to roll the dice on coaching, like I really did. As much as I loved my time in the printing industry, and some great clients and friends were established through that, I was burned. Like, actually had a friend say to me, "You look like a heroin addict." Like I was like really strung out. There's just a lot of pressure. We had a lot of accounts, and I was looking after in New South Wales and the ACT and Queensland. I was looking after probably our top 10 accounts, and they were big accounts. High maintenance.
Yep.
5 of them were 24/7.
Yeah,
And
right.
I was on call for them for 10 years. So that side of it was hard, but we also realised we've got to pay bills. So I was going from earning a wage that was guaranteed to, now I've got to generate my own income. But yeah, to Tracy's credit, she said to me, "Well, have a go." So we did that, and a chunk of athletes were on board and said, "Yep, we're happy to go." And
yeah, well, I was lucky through that period too because Kate and I had the same discussion. So when you said your reaction to it was different, mine and yours were quite different timelines.
yes,
And so for me it was. I actually had a couple of setbacks over that period. So I had to reinvent myself. The first one, it was a surprise, but I just jumped straight into a bit of truck driving, and I knew enough people that I knew that I could always have a job doing that if I needed to be. So I had something to fall back on if I needed to. Obviously in sales, and I didn't want to go back into sales. I really felt like it had run its course, and like you, I'd had a great time over that period of time, but I wasn't prepared to keep going down that road. I needed to change of direction for my own well-being. But yeah, it was a different time frame. But I had that same conversation with Kate. I think we went away on a little bit of a road trip around New South Wales at that point when I had my second setback. And things New South Wales had opened back up, but you couldn't go and bend any bananas in Queensland. But you could go anywhere in New South Wales. And I think we were sitting on laying beside a river in Mudgee, and we were sort of hashing out what I needed to do to set up my own business and get going, and went on that adventure. So but that was right, go time.
I think COVID was a game changer for a lot of people. Some for negative reasons, like I think some people really struggled and are still a little bit. But then for other people, it forced their hand, and I was one of those. It made me make some decisions about how I had to go about things and how I wanted to live life, I think overall it was good for me in that sense,
Definitely, mate. I mean, you don't look like a heroin addict now.
No.
You look like a bit of an ice user. But I wouldn't say heroin addict.
Yeah, that's right, mate. So, I think, it's, when you're in race, once you get into race shape, it is he a triathlete or is he a heroin addict? It's a bit of that look. But, I think overall that first lockdown was a big game changer for me. I came out, that gave me drive suddenly for the rest of the lockdown period, which was still a bit of time. I was suddenly focusing on trying to get some branding done and talking to some really good people like Michelle Grice from Shell Design, who helped design the logo and that. And I spoke to some close friends and stuff about just stuff for their input, because I respect them, and I thought they're probably smarter than me on this, so may as well draw on that. So that gave me some purpose, and then obviously once restrictions started to lift and we could get back into stuff.
Did you find once you started reaching out to people so keen to help you?
Yeah, mate. Look, I think I'm, and you're in the same boat, Lucas, because you're sort of in similar circles to me. The triathlon community as a whole and the people associated with it, I think they're quite positive people, and they like to help and they like to share your successes and that. And so I've always found if you reach out to them for any reason, invariably you get more offers of help than you need. Yeah. So that was like really good for me. But it just let me get some clarity into what I wanted to do. So we got rolling, and was going along swimmingly, and then bang, second round of COVID. And I thought, oh, crap, I could really be in strife here, But surprisingly, I actually picked up some new clients during that period because they just wanted structure and they wanted some certainty and they needed someone to chat to. And, I don't coach like a lot of coaches where depending on what level of coaching fee you pay, you get a certain amount of access to me. I have one set of coaching fees and you've got access to me, like if you need, because that's what I'm there for, is to help you be a better coach, not be a better athlete, not, you can talk to me twice and you can email me twice and you can send 4 texts in a month, that's it. I'm not like that. It's pretty much unlimited. So, yeah, a lot of athletes come on, a few more. So it's always kept me at a good number where I can justify paying the bills and Tracy's happy with that. So, during that second lockdown, obviously we had the 5K restriction in, if you were going outside of your LGA and all that. And I went through a second period of not doing much because I hate sitting on the home trainer and that. I like to ride my bike outside, going on a few adventures. So, it was August and I went, you know what, I'm porking up here. I've gone well over the 70 kilo mark. So, which may not be a lot for some people, but when you tend to be mid-60s a lot of the time, it was. And
it happened to me about 10.
Year 9.
yeah, I think I was 10. I went well over the 70 kilo mark.
But yeah, mate, so I set myself a goal. I just said, you know what, every day in September I'm going to ride 100K or more within my LGA.
Every day?
Every day. So from the 1st to the 30th or 31st or whatever, 30th of September, I rode 100K or more. So I think the last week was like 970 odd K, 33 hours on the bike. And it was similar ride distance, like routes, because you had to work out where your LGA went that you could ride, and the roads were a little bit quieter because there was, there was still some industry around and people were still doing stuff.
I remember seeing cyclists on YouTube riding through the city in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And they just had their whole roads to themselves.
Yeah, this was very quiet. Yeah. So I got out and did that, and just for something for my own headspace. And so that was the 30th of September. And then so it was 2021. And then I had a day off on the 1st of October. No, I rode 1st of October. And then the 2nd of October, day off. And then I rode on the 2nd of October. And when I was out riding, a young guy on his mountain bike with his headphones in just turned right in front of me and without looking, and I tried to avoid him, and then he stopped and I hit him and I broke my neck. So...
Hey guys, if you like what you hear, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you can receive updates on when new episodes drop.
So you broke your neck?
Yeah, so I'd been out riding with one of my athletes, and I looked at my speedo and went, if I do one more lap here and then head home, I'll get 150K up for the day. So I was going to be cheering with that. And this young guy, he's turned, didn't look. Hit him hard. Like, didn't realise I'd broken my neck, but like I was in a lot of pain. Like subscap, done some damage down that side. Cut some cuts and bruises and whatever. And luckily, young one of the juniors I coach and his dad, they were just literally 50 metres away, and they saw and heard all of it. So they came over to see how I was at the time. The athlete I was training with on the day, Amy Carlin, who she's like physio and whatever, so I just sent her a message and said, because she was doing a little run off the bike, and I said, I'm in a bit of strife here, I've been hit, I've been cleaned up and whatever. Rang my wife and said, can you jump in my car, come out and get me, because I needed to get my bike in the car. So we did that, and I just said, take me home so I can get changed, and then I went to the hospital.
Is that because you had your good nicks and that on? You didn't want them to cut them off you?
Well, we know that's happened before. So vivid memories of Sam Appleton, who's racing pro these days, but when he was a junior, he crashed out with us one time, and they cut his T-Mobile jersey off him, and he cried because it was his pride and joy. He didn't have a lot as a young kid. So
it's only a broken neck, not the jersey.
Well, mate, I mean, obviously the neck we didn't know about, and there wasn't any pain in the neck at the time, but but I knew I was pretty bad. But But I thought I'm going to be stuck at the hospital. I need to be in some comfortable clothing, like wearing tight, lycra and everything. Yeah. So my family being what they are and me being pretty low key with stuff, I drove myself to the hospital and just parked wherever I could park and went into emergency and said, "Oh yeah, I've had a bike accident." Da da da.
You wouldn't have wanted to pay for parking either. You probably parked.
No, I did. No, park down the road. Yeah, I'm a tight ass like that. So yeah, so I got admitted and they did I don't know how many scans and stuff on me and whatever, and they said, "Oh yeah, look, nothing's broken. You can we'll give you some painkillers, prescription, and that, and you can go home."
They said nothing's broken.
Yeah, so that was the Saturday. The Sunday was grand final day. Penrith were in their second grand final, and my young bloke is, at the time he was about 100 kilos. He's my height, so he's a pretty big boy, solid. He was at the house watching it with us. Surprisingly, given my behaviour the year before when Penrith lost, but. So Penrith won the grand final. He was, because it was in Queensland that year because of, obviously, we still had COVID stuff going on. Yeah. So he was pumped, and my biggest fear in that moment was he was going to hug me because I was in so much pain, so I just fist pumped him. So that was the Sunday. The Monday I went out to Regatta Centre, had a ride with the boys, just easy because I was trying to just see how I could go. I think I rode the Monday and I was ordinary. So I went, I'm not going to do this. So then I went to the gym to do a little bit of just trying to use some resistance work to just try and move a few things and see what I could do. I swam. I did my first swim back because the pools had just reopened. So I'd been at the gym a couple of times, and then on the Saturday and the Sunday, LGA restrictions got lifted. So I went around the Lookout, which is a local ride out our way, 60k loop, with Brunny and a few of the other fellas. And I was like, I'm getting worse. This is feeling worse. And so I'd seen my physio and my masseur, and both of them said, something's going on here. Like, your neck doesn't feel right. Maybe you need to get it. Like they said they don't want to touch it. So I rang up to get my scans, and they said, "What scans do you want?" I said, "The ones in my neck." And they said, "We didn't do your neck." Oh. So they'd done everything else, like my shoulder and back and all this, but they hadn't done my neck. So. Went in to get a referral to get scan of my neck. And they found a fracture in C7, and which is pretty obvious. And my GP, who's a real old bloke and pretty low key when he talks to you, he was reading the report, and his exact words were, "Oh, fuck. Really? Oh, shit." And then he goes, "You know that Phil Hughes fella, the cricketer?" I said, "Yes." He said, "This is what killed him." That was the only moment, and Tracy will hear this for the first time, that was the only moment where I really went, "Oh, shit, what the hell?" Like, I was panicked because I had some loss of use of my right arm, and really? That was because at the time we thought the nerves were being impacted by the fracture. Mm-hmm. So, so I was a little bit edgy there, but he said that, so that was, I'd seen him after that. So, but when I got the scans done, they basically walked out with the report and handed me then and said, "You need to go straight to emergency. You need to ask for your neurosurgical team." So that was also a bit of a smack in the face, So again, drove myself up to the hospital because I wasn't with anyone at the time. Then obviously they hit the panic buttons, and then it was like, boom, suddenly neck braces went on and everything else. So
did it feel real then? When they start whacking you in a brace,
yeah. Look,
at what point did it go?
I think it felt real when I could just see their reactions, and that was more because they realised they discharged me without X-raying my neck. Yeah, they fucked up. They'd fucked up basically, and I was 13 days out and about with a broken neck. I've been training. I was doing overhead pressing work, and I was doing what I could do because I was so keen to get back because the gyms had just opened, LGA restrictions had just been lifted. Weather was nice, it was early October. So I went into a neck brace, and then I sat on the lounge for 5 months because I was allowed to turn my head. I had to wear the brace 24 hours a day. Eventually I was allowed to take it off in the shower. Things like that. But, so that was like a setback, I suppose. And
So how did you cope with that? You just come out of that COVID period where everything had been restricted, and now you were physically restricted.
yeah, so it was interesting because I'm also the head coach for Western Sydney Academy of Sports Triathlon program. And literally that Saturday that I actually crashed, I was supposed to be running a bike skill session for the first session of the season for the juniors. And I had to ring and say, look, I'm not going to be there. And so two other coaches that were assisting me that season, they took the session. And then I turned up to the next session in a neck brace. And there was parents and kids that had never seen me without a neck brace on until obviously the end of the season when I came out of it in the March. And then at Academy Games, they saw me without a neck brace. And so, so when you look at it like that, I was lucky that I was busy with coaching and in the junior space. So that was really good. And then, once I come out of the neck brace, and it was start again, like re-strengthen the neck, re-strengthen everything.
So the upside was you had purpose at the time, and they needed you back into it as soon as you can. So as soon as you
I wanted
to get back to
I mean, I was sensible. I listened hard to my physio and to the neurosurgeon that I'd been put in contact with, who was unreal, Kevin Seeks. He did the right thing by me with everything. If he hadn't given me that guidance and explained stuff the way he had, I've no doubt I would have ended up having surgery. Yeah. But he just said, if you do all this right, he goes, it'll heal and you won't need to. And he was really happy. It was a really nice clean heel because it's right at that point of articulation at the base of your cervical spine. So
it's not something you really want to mess around with.
No, mate. I mean, you screw that up and you're a para or a quad, So, and I've got a good mate, John McLean, who, was in a wheelchair. And as much as his life was very good and he's had a lot of stuff happen, he said he'll do everything, he'd give everything back to be able to walk, So I was mindful of that reality. But the fact that, again, I was surrounded by my family who support him all the time, but just, again, good people that with the athletes I was coaching, and there was good support there. And the juniors, they keep you alive and young, and, they're positive and they don't sook around you. They just get on with it. And, so it made it positive. And the 5 months, whilst they probably dragged some days, they went fairly quick. Yep. And then, come out of the brace and then, to start again, build my bull neck back up. So
when did you get out of the brace? How long ago was
2nd
that?
2nd of March, 2021.
Okay. And then you had another bike accident.
Yeah, so then just recently, again, riding out to meet some people, and a guy on his phone just walked out in front of me, not looking, and I swerved to miss him, and he obviously registered something there, and he stepped backwards straight into me, hit him, fractured my wrist in 3 places and split my face open and whatever. And so they had to obviously go get a cast. And the interesting part of all that was in that process, they actually found that I had an old fracture on my ulnar, which is one of your forearm bones, that they asked me when I'd done it. And I said, I broke it when I was a kid, but that was it, like when I was 7. They said, no, and I spoke to the hand surgeon who I had to see, and he said, it's about 2 years old. And so we think I also broke my arm when I crashed, I did my neck, and they were the only 2 things that they didn't.
They didn't X-ray?
Didn't X-ray, yeah. So my daughter, who's a paramedic, she said to me it's called a distraction injury. So the amount of pain I had in my shoulder and down my back was a distraction. Oh. So they didn't do their processes correctly to tick all the boxes, which was it's a head injury with a cyclist, do a neck X-ray, and they didn't check other parts of me, even though I had cuts and stuff on my legs. They so that was also part of the weakness in the arm. So but again, you get on with it.
You would have been crapping yourself, like going down again, just going, fuck, not the neck again.
Well, I was edgy because the neurosurgeon had said, whatever you do, don't get a big impact in the next 2 years while the bone in the neck is still remodeling and rehealing itself. So, but it seems all right. So it's all good.
Yeah. And how long were you off from that one?
So I was in a cast for 6 weeks, and then when the cast came out, I
into it.
started doing stuff, which is now sort of another 4 weeks on since that. So
So that was quite recent.
Just King's birthday. There's the crash.
wow.
So
Oh, I'm pleased you've moved straight on to the King, calling it the King's birthday. Some of us are struggling to move on from old Liz.
from Lizzie, yeah.
So when did you do your first triathlon? How'd you get into the triathlon thing?
So I used to just ride my bike to work. I grew up playing soccer and obviously doing show jumping and all that. And when I was show jumping, because both parents worked, I'd get home from school and I'd have to get changed, get my bike, and I used to have to ride to the stables and that. So I'd done a bit of riding, and obviously cross country, boarding school, you go do cross country running so you can get out of school for the day and things like that. No real swimming in my background to speak of. Like my grandmother taught me to swim when I was 7 because my mum didn't swim because of a near drowning when she was a kid. So, but again, living in South Africa, a bit like Australia, great weather, great, lots of water around and stuff. So, so just doing that. And then I think, just a couple of mates wanted to start doing a bit of riding. So we bought some cheap ass bikes and, we started doing a bit. And then my wife, she'd known John McLean and some associated family friends prior to me even meeting her. And I was just sort of starting to look at this triathlon caper, and John was down at St Mary's pool there at Ripples having a swim, and I was there with him and we were having a swim, and he said to me, he goes, "You're doing this triathlon at the end of the month?" And I was giving him all the reasons why I shouldn't. And, these are guys in a wheelchair preparing to do Hawaiian Ironman and all sorts of stuff, and so my excuses sounded pretty pathetic. And he just said to me, he said, "Mate, come on, just get on with it. Get out there and do it." So I did. And there was a St George Olympic distance race out at the regatta. So that was my first race, like no idea. Did 47 minutes on the run for 10K, and I thought I was like a world beater. And Ben Ardup had run 31:30 on the day to win the race. I was like, geez, how do these guys do this? Yeah. But the bug bit, I was sort of intrigued and felt like something I wanted to sort of sink my teeth into. So that was like, I don't know, maybe like March 1996 maybe. So I just had a little bit of a dabble there, and joined Panthers Tri Club and met Andy Haynes and Johnny Thorndike and Tony Phipps, who 3 old blokes and rat bags. I mean, they were in their 40s at the time. It sounds funny given I'm 53 now, but at the time I was 26 and that, didn't really know much. And they guided me, which is probably a blessing and a curse. They were great, in those first couple of seasons. And real quickly, I just had this thing about distance, So I went up and watched Andy Haynes race Ironman at Foster back then in 1997, and he went 9:44 and qualified for Kona and couldn't go because he couldn't justify the money and stuff. And at the time. And I was like, man, this looks like something I could really have a crack at. It sort of really grabbed me. And so I started training a bit more seriously with those boys, and they probably guided me well in my early days to understand a bit.
Did you find so you were running a lot more than anything else, right? So you're doing a bit of cycling, but you said you weren't doing much swimming. So did you have to focus?
I started swimming, and because I understood the sport needed it, so got in the water and
you focused more on the swimming training.
Yeah, I just started to do it all. Like there was no real focus to anything because back then, the knowledge around it was pretty slim. Yeah. So you just learned from other older blokes who'd been around a bit, and just started doing that, and then I remember at the time, again, this is what I talk about, good people, and they paid forward and you've got to do the same thing. So Andy Haynes just said to me, I was on this old beat up $600 bike or whatever, and Andy had a Cannondale 2.8 at the time, and it had a Zip 404 tubulars, and they were the Ducks nuts back in the day. And he said to me, "You can use my bike for Ironman and take it down to Canberra and do Shuchinmoy," which was the only other sort of longer race in the season back in those days. And I remember going to the bike shop and saying, "Oh, Dave, I'm going to need you to help me with just adjust my position a little bit. He goes, oh, whose bike are you using? I said, oh, Andy Haynes's. And he's like, oh my God, whatever you do, don't scratch it. Like, it's his baby. So then I was shitting myself, like, oh, I'm going to crash or something. But anyway, I used Andy's bike at Ironman in 1998 up at Foster. And Greg Chapman gave me the Ironing Man Award for best rookie performance of that season. And that was it. I sort of found my mojo with that. I just loved it. And that's still there today. I still love the sport. How
many Ironmans in are you now?
So I've done 13.
You got to Kona a couple times?
I qualified for Kona a few times, but I again, circumstance and finances probably presented it.
Yeah.
Then it was a long block where I didn't, and we thought, maybe I've missed my opportunity. But then in 2014, I qualified, went over and raced, and had the experience of racing, Kona World Champs. Probably not the best prep. I just started a new job as a full-time coach and all that. So
what's it like? Like racing over there, like describe it to someone. Like, can you?
Yeah, look, I mean, Ironman's a beast. It's for those that aren't aware. Nowadays it's a brand, Ironman, but for the purists in our sport, it's a distance. So the Ironman distance is a 3.8k swim. It's a 180.2k bike, and it's a 42.2k run. They sound like arbitrary numbers, but it was just back in the day. John Collins and a few of the boys got on the beers, and there was an argument about best athlete, swim, bike, or runner, and so they decided to test themselves out, and they just went, okay, what's about? And there was the Mulukai Roughwater swim, which was a 3.8k swim. There was an around the island bike ride on the Big Island, and that was 180k. And there was the Honolulu Marathon. So that's sort of how the distances came about, If you were picking it today and trying to make it sort of equitable, it'd probably a 5k swim, to balance up. Yeah. But that was it. And so every Ironman around the world is the same distance, yeah? So that's your challenge. You turn up, it's like a marathon. You turn up anywhere in the world to do a marathon, it's 42.195 kilometres. So that's what it is.
And it's always swim,
bike, run. And if you actually watch an event, you'll understand why the swim could never be last. Yeah, you have people who are going out sideways on the run. If they were in the water, you'd have 1,000 drownings, yeah. So, but yeah, Kona is a different beast in the sense that it's a volcanic island. So there's a lot of lava. So it's quite barren, the landscape, and it's no hotter than like parts of Australia, because it's like only probably that mid-30s, it can be a little bit warmer, a little bit cooler, but the humidity's through the roof. So there's a bit like being in Cairns, I suppose, is probably an Australian equivalent. And that heat off the road and off the land creates a big challenge. So Kona is the, I suppose, is the soul of triathlon and of Ironman. That's what it is. It's this entity that we all want to do. It's it's part of our history of our sport, and you want to tick that box. As a race location, it's a nice place. The race itself is not an interesting course. A lot of it's on the Queen K Highway, but it's challenging. Like, it's just unforgiving, and I suppose what makes it, aside from the conditions and the aura of it, the other thing that makes it challenging is to go there, you have to have qualified from an equivalent Ironman race in your own country or somewhere in the world, and there's pro rata spots. So the year I qualified, there was only 5 spots in my age group, and we were the biggest age group in the race. So other age groups only 1 spot. But when you turn up, everyone in your age group essentially has gone top 4 or 5 in their age in their respective race. So the quality of what's racing is huge. So yeah, it's pretty epic from that point of view.
And so would you change your training a bit to race that?
Yeah, there's a lot of things I would do differently to go to Kona and try to be successful there from a race. You've got to
acclimatise a bit, right?
You have to acclimatise, but again, that's your challenge of cost. You can't fly over there like the pros do and spend 2 or 3 or 4 weeks there prepping. So you just got to do what you can. Old school was throw a couple of semi-wet towels in the dryer in the laundry and close the door and just sit on the bike and pedal and sweat like a pig.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, ticking the Kona box was a big deal for me. Just because I think it sort of, for a lot of us, it probably completes your Ironman sort of journey. You sort of that chapter in your life. Would I go back again to Kona? Possibly, if I qualified. Although nowadays it's extremely expensive. And
How much are we looking at?
well, entry fee alone is $1,500 US.
Oh wow.
And accommodation is like triple what it used to be. Like people are dropping 10, 15 grand on ACOM and stuff. So
And you got to pay straight away. So if you qualify and you got to accept your slot the next morning, and you've got to pay.
Yeah, you got to pay there and then.
Then.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you might
So
not
you
even
qualify and you're just like, oh fuck.
So you finish at
Grand.
6 o'clock on the Sunday night, and on Monday at roll down at 10 a.m. Your name gets called out. You either walk up and get your spot, or you miss out.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you have to
no, I'll
know
go
ahead of
next year.
schedule what you're doing. Like that I chatted to Tracy, and we'd agreed if I qualified I'd go, so that you're not trying to make that decision on the morning and go do we have the money. Like you've actually got to have that in your head.
because your partner's normally fairly glad that the Ironman journey for that year's finished. Because how many hours, James, would you say? And obviously you can do it with less or you can do it with more, but how many hours would you say on a weekly basis, if you're ramping up for an Ironman event, would you need to put in?
Look, I think if you're really committed and you're not going to stuff around in your days and you're really going to get everything out of a training session you can, I think you could go over and race well and finish probably on somewhere maybe between that 15 and 20 hour mark.
Yep.
But if you're someone like me who gets fit on volume and you thrive on volume rather than intensity.
And you need to be in the gym as well.
Yeah. Like for me, I'll happily roll a 20 to 30 hour week most weeks in those periods. Obviously, a lot of that's on the bike.
But so 30 hours, so it's almost like a full-time
Yeah,
job.
it's a second
it is,
job,
yeah.
and I mean, I think a mistake I see a lot of athletes make is they think they can train like that and still wake up at 7 o'clock and go do their training and expect their family to tolerate that. Whereas for me, I think one of the reasons I've had longevity in this sport and still have stayed married to my wife and my kids are happy to see me still, and that is because if I've got to get a 6 hour bike ride done and my wife says, well, we've got to go to something at 9:30, I just work backwards and go, I have to be home by 9, so I'm leaving at 3 and I'm home and I'd go. And, so there's a coach, he's a bit of a controversial figure. There's two controversial figures in our sport coaching wise, so I won't name names, but one thing he did say at one point, which really struck me and it stayed with me for a lot of years, is he said, you don't talk about sacrifice, you talk about investment. So I was willing to invest some of my sleep hours into my training because that allowed me to then invest in my family.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sacrificing sleep and I wasn't sacrificing TV time or anything. I was just investing that time in things that allowed me to prepare the best I could.
That's a nice different way to frame the mindset of what it takes.
Well, mate,
Because sacrifice.
we're doing hard stuff, yeah. So if you're framing everything with negative terminology and negative linguistics, how do you bring yourself through on that? Whereas if you're framing it with, I'm doing this for my benefit and I'm doing this for my family's benefit, then you'll go ahead and get it done. Your head's clear and you can go out and put yourself in the locker, yeah.
I'm going to try that next time. I've got to
Because sacrifice feels like you're losing something.
Yeah.
You're not.
Well, if you're
gaining.
sacrificing your TV time, what you're saying is your TV time is more important to you than the riding time, which is the thing that's going to help you achieve your goal on the day.
Yeah.
So it's ludicrous to think that way,
Yeah.
That's what I struggle with is the time. 2 young kids, business,
Yep.
and training up for something.
And mate, that's why I say to people, you have to. That's why I think coaches are important, because coaches can sit down and map out a big picture for you, and they can make it work. You know, mate, it's no use, Dave, if you go and achieve your goal at UTA, but your family are gone when you get back. Well, really? That is called sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you were so self-absorbed, you didn't realise that my family's falling apart, you know. And this is something I say to lots of the younger athletes, you know, like, you know, if they're just about to get married or they're in a pretty solid relationship or they've started a new job or they've just had kids, I say to them, you have to make your training unseen.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to invest in ways to not put that as an additional stress on your family and on your friends. Like you've got to do it in a way that allows you to have longevity and have happiness in other aspects. And if you're losing that, then you know there's a problem.
Yeah, I find that when I've got to go for a run or whatever, you know, a certain time, I get home after work, I've got to go. I feel a bit of that guilt, you know what I mean? Leaving the missus at home with the kids.
And you can feel the tension too.
You feel the tension.
Yeah.
You sort of don't enjoy it as much. You're not getting as much out of
Yeah,
it.
because why? Because while you're running, your head's running over the fact that, that wasn't real good. And so now you can't. So imagine, mate, that might be a 30-minute run. Imagine when you're going out for 6 hours. And then when you get home, you put in the bike in the room, you put your running shoes on and you're going for a 2-hour run. So 8 hours where your head's rolling going, she's shitty with me because you know, or the kids wanted me to kick the footy and I'm saying no. Whereas if I just wake up earlier, I avoid all of that.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And you mentioned before you're more of a volume. You go from volume. There's volume and intensity. So if you're training someone, you're taking someone on, how do you figure that out in somebody?
You just look how they're coping, you know, like I think for some athletes, obviously there's that natural bias one way or the other.
Yeah.
But for less experienced athletes, I think volume is the key because they don't understand how to be intensive. Like they don't know how to gauge that and judge it in a session. So if you keep their intensity a little bit lower and you just build their volume, they get really fit, but you're not breaking them. I think it's hard to break someone on volume, but it's very easy to break them on intensity. And if I told you to go in the gym and, you know, get 40 kilo and squat it, you could probably squat it for a bunch of sets of 10. So there's 40 reps, no drama. Like you're a little bit sore the next day because your body's not used to it. But if I sent you in there and said, put 100 kilos on the bar and squat at once, you break yourself. So it's the same. You can go out and, if you think about intensity, if you go for a walk, that's low intensity. If you do a slow jog, that's slightly higher. If you're doing a faster run, it's higher again. And if you're sprinting hard, that's peak intensity, But you can't peak intensity for 2 hours, but you could walk for 2 hours. So when you've got newer, less experienced athletes, volume, I think, is more important to build for them if their goal is long course racing. Obviously, if they're short course racing, like a lot of the juniors are, the term volume is different, but I think also a lot of us get into the sport as amateurs or age groupers for enjoyment and for like a healthier lifestyle and all that. And it's cool fun to go ride your bike for a few hours, you know, riding, like talking to Lucas next to him. We're just talking crap for 4 hours instead of sitting at the pub, sinking 8 beers, talking crap and probably getting in a punch up because you're drunk. So it's good fun, you know, and I go, that's what I enjoy. So there's two aspects to that for me with volume. I do the quality when I have to and I'll make my athletes do the quality when they have to because that's what makes you race fast. But you've got to build a foundation with them, and that kind of mentality I think works well for people.
And what about with rest and recovery? So what do you find with the volume training, you need less recovery time than you would with the
intensity? To a point. At some point, if the volume's high enough, the recovery factor's challenged anyway. You know, if you do an easy run for an hour, it's an easy run. But if you do an easy run for 2 hours, it's no longer an easy run because the duration makes it hard. Whereas if you go ride your bike for 3 hours and you're cruising, that's fine. But if you did the same cruising speed but for 9 hours, now the 9 hours becomes the problem, not the intensity. So there's always this balancing act between volume and intensity, And also you've got to gauge your athlete. Some people will recover really well because of their background. You know, if you've got somebody who's done a different sport that's running based and they were pretty good at it, they'll just tend to have a better running background. So they'll cope with running work better than somebody who comes out of a swim background, even though they both might have been at a pretty good level. So you, as a coach, you've just got to judge that and then you structure, but you also then know what you've got to be emphasising to make it worked for them.
Mate, why should we stay fit and healthy? Like chemically, if you're lazy and you're sitting around not doing much, like chemically or biologically or whatever, what happens if you don't? Especially as you're getting older.
Yep. So, as I said to you earlier, I love a quote, and I've got a
I love
big,
quotes.
big folder
Lucas
full of
loves a
them,
quote.
like pages and pages of them, and there's a few that I use all the time. So, to that question, there was one that struck as soon as I saw that question. I went, "Oh yeah, here's a quote that'll really help it out." And the quote is, "Action is the antidote to despair."
Oh, yeah.
And I think we're designed to be active and move and do things. That's why we can do so much with our bodies. And I think what happens, one of the reasons I think things like depression and anxiety and all these things are growing in our society is because people are doing less. They live on their phone. The fittest part of their body is their thumb. Because they're whereas I think when we get out and exercise from a mental health perspective and from a spiritual perspective, your soul, your heart, your mind, the pheromones and the endorphins that get released from being physical, they help you, so you feel better afterwards. But also, you think about little kids, you watch them playing, and they got they got 3 cars or their doll, and they've got a whole world going for however much time. They're in the moment. Nothing else matters.
Yeah.
What's for dinner? What happened at breakfast? What happened at school the day before? None of that's happening. They're in the moment. And I think when you go into sport and you do exercise and, even if you're not competing, if you just get out and you're training and you're doing things you enjoy and you love, you get immersed in the moment. And let's say you did that for an hour. Well, for an hour, you haven't thought about the shit fight at work or the drama you've got at home or whatever. You just haven't. And you've allowed your brain and your emotional system and your hormonal system to switch off from stress levels for a period of time. Then you come back to the world, and now you've actually got some clarity, and you actually come up with a solution.
Yeah.
Because you've just given your brain some quiet time, and it works. Yeah.
Meditation, pretty much.
Yeah, it is. It's because people think meditation is you sit there going but okay, it's a form of meditation, but activity is a form of meditation too. If I go for a trail run, I'm concentrating on not tripping on a rock and all of this. You can't think about anything else because you're focused there, but your brain's got nicely channeled. Everything else is getting some quiet time.
So you don't have any when you trail run, you don't have any country music just running over and over on loop in your brain.
Oh, mate, sometimes you might have something going, but what I'm saying
it's
is
not just me.
no, but you're giving yourself an opportunity. Eminem's country, isn't it?
He's done a couple of duets.
Okay, but like it's whatever it is, But what it's doing is it's just taking you away for a temporary little space from your day-to-day stresses,
Yeah.
And sometimes, something at work, you're not solving it till Monday. So why be sweating on it all day today?
Yeah.
All you're doing is you're not solving the problem. You're just ruining today.
Exactly.
So if you can find ways to, do something positive for yourself, ultimately you'll become positive for everyone else. And then from a general physical health point of view, certainly bone density and all of that is enhanced, and muscle tone and your muscular capacity is enhanced from ground force impact, which is essentially what running does and all of this. So you're going to be healthier. So things like osteoporosis and that are going to be a lot further into your future rather than somebody who's inactive.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that because I know astronauts and that when they're in the International Space Station, that's one of the problems. Their body starts to reset this in terms of bone density and muscle mass. And that's why they've got to have all these treadmills where they're strapped down to simulate gravity. Because when they come back, if you're up there for any more than 6 months, you've got some long-term health issues you've got to sort back out.
And if you're sitting on the lounge for 6 hours a day watching Netflix or
it's just like being on the International Space Station.
On your phone or doing TikTok, outside of lower level of oxygen scenario going on, you're doing nothing to stimulate your body.
Yeah. And
I think the other thing that, going out and doing something physical for yourself does is it gives you a sense of accomplishment.
Yep.
If you sat on the lounge and you're overweight and you're struggling, the first, you might have to first walk and, I don't want to name names of anybody who I've dealt with in these scenarios because I haven't asked them for permission for that, I suppose. But there's a lady who's been a family friend for a long time, and she was really, really overweight. And when she decided she needed to make some changes, she started just walking. And people used to throw food at her when she was walking down the street.
Really?
Mate, she was 108 kilos. And she was like probably to my shoulder, like she's like 5 foot and a bit. So she was, she's a big girl. But, I go, this is people ridiculing her. So she got a treadmill and just started walking on the treadmill at home till she got to a point. So, but the first time she was able to run, like jog, the sense of accomplishment that would have given her from being, I'm struggling to walk to the fridge or back to the lounge without having to have a little breather.
Yeah.
And this lady went on to do Ironman.
Wow. That's cool.
Lots of people thought she wouldn't be able to do it because of where she came from, but she halved her body weight and she just had this mentality. And I go, mate, you got to bottle whatever that was.
Yeah.
Because
if you could put that in a pill,
mate,
big farmer would go out of business.
So what was it that, obviously something would have just triggered her to go, no,
she decided she had to make changes, she wanted to have a family, she wanted to get married, all these things. And again, if you're struggling to literally walk from the lounge to the bedroom and you've got to have a little chair halfway to have a seat, you're in all sorts of trouble. And and it's not just overweight people that's in this scenario. There's people with other health issues, and I go, if you just get out and move, you're going to do it. And it doesn't have to be lifting weights at the gym or whatever. If going for a walk is what does it, or just going to the pool and doing some laps, I go to people, just start.
People just get stuck, don't they? They just get stuck in it.
Yep.
And I've got some people that I've spoken to, they'll be like, oh, why don't you just go out and try walking? They're like, I'll have a think about it, or that's a good idea, but they'll never do it.
Yeah. It's a big challenge is to make them find a way to get them to take the first step, literally. And once they start, then they get going. And this is why when people ask me about it, and I'm not coaching them, they just ask a question because they know I'm a coach, I say to them, just find something you enjoy doing and go do that first. If you like going to the gym, don't start running because you hate it, so you won't do it. But if you go to the gym and once you're getting a little bit fitter, you start thinking, that's all right, I wouldn't mind lifting my cardio. You might just jump on the treadmill at the gym or whatever, but that's your little stepping stones to ultimately, And if you think about it from a skills-based sport like diving or gymnastics or something, right? If you decide you want to start with that, you don't walk in and for the first time as a diver, get on the 10 metre and try to do an inward 3.5 because you kill yourself.
Yeah.
You go and the coach starts to teach you how to just do a little pin drop and all these things and you build up. And it's the same with any activity. If you want to do it, you just have to start. And then along the way, there's 100 questions to be asked. You need to answer 50 of them. Which 50 you have to answer depends on the answer to the first one, then the second one, then, and then that's how you figure out where your mojo is.
So, mate, just summarise that point. If someone at home is sitting on the couch right now and they know damn well they need to get moving, but they can't find their why, their reason. What's a good first step? Just do these first couple of things.
I'd say, okay, firstly, I'd say to them, write down what you want to do. Like, so you've got something as a reference, stick it on the fridge or whatever, or keep it somewhere private if you want to keep it private. I'd say try to find something that you actually like to do. Maybe you did it as a kid and now, and it's easy enough to do. Like, if you were a gymnast as a kid and now you're 50 kilos overweight, gymnastics is probably not the first thing to pick.
Yeah, start off the high bar.
But so, all the rings, so you don't get on the beam. But
do the floor.
Yeah.
Start with the floor routine.
Yeah, that's right. So you try to find something you're doing. And then the third thing I would say, and this is probably most crucial for some of these people, is try to find somebody you can do it with.
Yeah.
Because if I'm training by myself, when I'm in race mode and I'm focused, mate, I'll just go do everything on my own. I don't care. I'll just go. Yeah. But as I've got older and that, I really enjoy the social aspect of my training. Be able to go. I'd rather go for an easy ride with you, Lucas, on the bike and have a yarn than go, no, mate, I'm doing something by myself. And, because I go, for me right now, it's not as important.
Yeah.
But I think what happens is if you tee up with a buddy to do the stuff, you hold each other accountable. You don't want to let your mate down, so you turn up. So straight away, you've just created consistency.
Yeah.
And then, you know what, it might be 3 weeks or 3 months' time, you're moving along pretty well, and now you're motivating. You might be doing a couple of sessions by yourself. But if you try to make it too challenging straight off the bat, two things will happen. One, you'll get injured, almost guaranteed. Two, you'll lose motivation real fast because when you're as sore as all buggery, you're going to miss the next session because you're already too sore and whatever.
That's your reason not to go and train the
That's
next
your
day.
first reason, and then suddenly that's your habit, yeah?
Yeah.
So I go, do it easy, find something you enjoy, find somebody you enjoy doing it with.
Yeah.
And I think they're the starting points for people that are nowhere near it. If you can find a group, it's like swimming. I say to them, just join squad.
Yeah.
Like you can pay $80 for one-on-one with me in the pool. It's boring as batshit for me. I'm watching one person swim badly. You feel all this pressure because you're the only person in the lane and you know I'm standing there watching you. But you just get in the squad and get pushed along and encouraged by the other people in the lane, and that helps you get better.
Yeah.
Coach is still going to give you feedback.
Yeah.
But you just don't feel all this pressure. And it costs you $9. It doesn't cost you 80.
Yeah. Yeah.
So squad is just a group of people doing the same thing.
Yeah, so I run swim squads and I write sets up on the board and different time cycles depending on lane capability.
Yep.
And you put people in the appropriate lane and off they go. And obviously there'll always be someone in there that's going to be helpful. So I'll let them sort of do that, and then I just give some overriding sort of information. And but the same with the bike, or the run. If you're Dave, you're there going, okay, I want to do UTA and I want to have a go. You got no real experience in running. Lucas is somebody who's been around triathlon and understands a bit of running. He goes, all right, mate, I'll jump in with you. We'll do a little bit. So he's going to be able to educate you a bit because just as a bit of a mentor athlete. Yep. And then if you went, now I really need to get serious, he probably goes, well, go talk to James. He'll probably do a good running program for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
But
good. Like
people
when we
have to
first
start.
started, we were going out together, and we still sometimes go out and run together. And
Yeah.
I do quite enjoy it. We have a bit of a chat.
Yeah.
And,
You feel amazing when you get back, don't you?
Yeah.
When you're running with it.
Mate, it's
Yeah,
unreal.
it just
I go, just
compounds, like compounding interest.
Yeah.
Like, when you go for a run by yourself, you feel amazing when you get back. When you've been for a run with someone else and you both get back, you're just like thriving on it.
mate, it's a bit of
energy.
banter and it's a bit of fun. And so mentally, you've also been uplifted. Your body feels a bit alive, but mentally, you've been uplifted too. And I think that's important today because there's a lot of stress in jobs and everything, So,
mate, who is the greatest athlete of all time?
so
Don't say me because you feel obligated.
I won't,
you have
mate.
to,
And,
'cause I'm sitting over here.
and I won't say any of the other boys we know because they'll probably claim it themselves anyway. But I suppose simplistically, I would say to you, nominate a sport and I'll tell you the best athlete because
you were going to say
it's
that.
sport specific. It really is, mate. I mean, for me, MJ, Michael Jordan, he's the GOAT. From a basketball perspective, I go, I'd argue that, mate, LeBron's good and, Kobe and that, but I go, they don't hold a candle to MJ. Like, he changed the sport of basketball. But is he the greatest athlete? Well, if I had to put him in if I put him in a swimming pool, Michael Phelps is the greatest athlete we've ever seen in the pool. He's the greatest swimmer we've seen. And I look at someone like Ian Thorpe, I go, probably the best freestyler I've ever seen. He's phenomenal. But Phelps was the best swimmer.
Yeah.
Mate, 8 gold medals at one Olympics, 23 gold medals in total. He's 4 Olympic cycles.
That photo with him,
the
open
arms.
arms, like he's got massive hands and big arms. But he's just
Second,
got all his
second
gold
only,
medals
second
hanging
only
off
to
his
Greg
arms.
Chapman, throwing that out as water boy. So, but yeah, so to me, it's sport specific.
Yeah.
Like Jan Frodeno is probably the GOAT in triathlon. There's some challenges there, and so I suppose it's a great debate to have. But I don't think you can cross sports in relation to that. So what I like to do is I go, what do the greatest athletes have in common?
And it is.
So for me, I go, and talent's a given, I think. So the people who've been coached by me over the years, that I have this analogy, little thing I use, and I go, it's donkeys and thoroughbreds, yeah? And I go, we're all donkeys,
Yeah.
okay? Thoroughbreds are your professionals, the people at the elite level. And I go, if you want to win the Melbourne Cup, the first thing you have to do is get a thoroughbred.
Yeah.
Because I don't care how fast you make that donkey, it's still not going to be faster than the slowest thoroughbred.
Yeah.
So talent's a given, okay? If you're in this discussion as the greatest or just elite, then talent is already the separator from everyone else, yeah? But once you're at the top of that triangle and it's a tiny little top piece, what separates Usain Bolt from the rest of the sprinters of his generation or of all time, right? What separates Michael Jordan from the other greats within his sport, right? Okay, when you start to look at that, there's commonalities in there that they have over and above. So things like resilience, they just keep coming back. It doesn't matter what obstacles in their way, what happens, they come back and they come back better. They have perseverance, they have grit, determination, commitment. Their commitment's unwavering, There's another quote that I actually got from Brian Shaw, who's, again, we want to talk greatest of all time. He's in the discussion as the greatest of all time as world's strongest man. Sedenko's in there as well, and there's a few other guys because they're there, but Brian Shaw's 4 times world's strongest man, So let's throw that in. Yeah. But I've actually got a T-shirt of his that has discipline over motivation.
Do they make them that small?
Yeah, they do, mate. Yeah, it's kid sizes. Go to those junior ones, Yeah. But yeah, so discipline.
Sorry, say that quote again because I was
so discipline over motivation.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing, like you wake up and you're tired and you don't really want to go out the door. You turn over and you hit the alarm, snooze, and you go back to bed. The greats, they get up and they go and they do the job. They just do it, There's another quote, champions train, losers complain. And I go...
That's cool. I like that.
That's a good one.
I'm writing that down. Champions train.
Train, losers complain, yeah. So, so the other things, they have concentration. Once, if you watch stuff on Arnold, okay, arguably greatest of all time in bodybuilding. If you want to argue whether it's a sport or not, that's a different discussion. But he's the greatest of all time because he's transcended his sport. Yeah, my son who's 23 years old knows who Arnold is, knows everything about Arnold. Doesn't know a lot about some of the other bodybuilders who won plenty of titles because Arnold became the GOAT.
Yeah.
He talks in movies like Pumping Iron about flicking a switch. Standing chatting to us now, having a laugh. He's about to do his set. Bang, switch goes on. Set's done with 100% concentration. Puts the weight back down, flick, switch goes off, carries on chatting.
Yeah.
That ability to turn it on, turn it off, that to concentrate when it counts is there. That I suppose you could call that focus as well. And I suppose overarchingly self-belief. They believe in what they're going to do.
And they believe that they can be the greatest.
Yep. They don't trash talk because they don't need to, but they'll factually say, yeah, I'm here to win.
Yeah.
Usain Bolt did it. Kieran Perkins did it. These are people who...
Chris McCormick?
Well, Macca's a good example, mate, of somebody...
He had belief.
He had massive self-belief. The way he went about it probably rubbed some people the wrong way. They probably would accuse him of arrogance in some of it and that. But most times Macca backed up what he had to say.
Yeah. He was an Ironman triathlete.
So he's, Ironman triathlete, 2-time world champion, Olympic distance, phenomenal athlete, whereas you look at, say, someone like Craig Alexander, he's a very different personality to Macca, both very, very successful athletes. Crowie certainly at 70.3 in Ironman distance, his record is phenomenal. Most athletes would hand over their firstborn child to have his palmaris as a long course athlete, so, but very different personalities. But I'll tell you right now, those traits, they're common.
Yeah.
Crowie didn't mouth it like Macca did in that and some of the others, but his self-belief would have been unwavering when it, and they prepared. They all prepare.
So is it an obsession, or is obsession not the right word?
See, for me,
that was the next question.
Do you have to be obsessed to be great? Yeah. And my answer is no. You have to be committed. There is a difference.
Okay.
Commitment, like I can tell you right now, Craig Alexander was as committed as anybody's ever been in the sport. He prepared like few have prepared in the history of our sport, hence why he was successful. But he has a family.
Yeah.
He has kids that love him. His wife loves him and all that. So he wasn't obsessed because obsession is when everything else breaks down for you to do what you need to do. So then it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
That's obsession, right? You see people that stalk famous people because they're obsessed about them, yeah, it's unhealthy. Commitment is a healthy thing. You want to do Ironman and you want to do a marathon, or you want to play first division A grade netball. You've got to commit yourself to get to a level to be good enough to do that. You can't just say, I want to do it, so you're going to. But if you're willing to go training and that and not feeding your kids, and you ever forgot to go do the groceries because you wanted to fit another, that's obsession, and that's not healthy.
Yeah.
So that for me, that's very much the difference. And I've got a quote in here as well, because I love a quote. So this is around commitment and stuff, yeah, and achieving. And this can be like in your work. It doesn't have to be in your sport or that, right? It can be achieving in jobs or whatever. And so this is Chris Shugart, he's a strength and conditioning coach in the US, and he's got a bit of profile over there. But the quote that he put out that I really like, he said, "The key to success is to realize that you're not that special, and you'll have to work harder than you think. Start from that foundation." And I like that. I go, if you want to go to world champs as a triathlete, you're gonna have to train way harder than you think you're gonna have to, because lots of people are trying. And I always say there's always the exception to the rule, and you're not it.
Yeah. Is that those quotes are really just to ground you?
Yeah, mate. People look at, like, you talk about the goats of sport. Look at Usain Bolt, mate. He's another guy. He's absolute superstar. He transcended sprinting. He's redefined it. Yeah. And when he talks in interviews, he's very jovial, and you think, oh yeah, he's just super talented and does it. There's a doco on YouTube, on Netflix, about Bolt. And mate, the guy, he had a skeletal thing going on in his spine, curvature of his spine, and had to do a lot of work for that. And mate, he trains harder than anyone.
Because people would look at Usain Bolt and think, biologically, you are God's gift to sprinting.
Mate, he's a specimen.
You've got everything.
He is.
And then you find out that.
But he's the thoroughbred, yeah?
Yeah.
But mate, Johan Blake was a thoroughbred too.
Yeah.
And, and all of these guys say his competition are thoroughbreds too.
Yeah.
So Usain Bolt was always going to be fast, right?
Yeah.
No matter what. Mate, with no training, he's probably outrunning most humans on this planet. But to be the fastest man ever, he had to work really, really hard. He had to show massive commitment. There's a YouTube clip of him training, and they're interviewing his coach while he's running. And then, so while the camera's on the coach, you suddenly, Bolt's come through the finish line, he's jogging around, and then you just suddenly see him go to the fence, and he's down on one knee, mate. He's vomiting into the gutter.
Wow.
He's training hard, yeah?
He's spewing.
Mate, he's drilling himself.
In training.
But when you watch the clip up to that point, mate, he's running in a tracksuit pant with a hoodie on, but he's running 100 metres on the bend in like 10.6.
Yeah.
In tracky pants with a hoodie. And you think, oh, he's not going that hard, but he is. But,
Yeah.
So different personalities can give you a different perspective and an impression of what they are, but they're all common, mate. I'm telling you now, they train hard, and they give everything they have to be the best.
Yep. But commitment gives you balance. It's planning being applied.
Yep.
Obsession is
Session is when you're going to do it to the detriment of everything else.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's where it goes wrong. Yeah.
And do a lot of athletes.
Yes, mate. Many people lose their marriages and their relationships with their kids and stuff because they just become so obsessed with what they're trying to do, and they don't understand that there's a tipping point. Like I said, if you need to do 9 hours on the bike and you're only willing to roll out the door at 7 o'clock because that works for you, at some point your wife and kids or whatever, they or your husband and your kids or whatever, they're going to say, "Oh, I'm over this. We're out." You come home and either your clothes are all on the lawn or they're all gone.
Yeah.
And I go, "So what are you doing it for?" And you know what? It's a little bit different if it's your job. Like if you're a professional athlete, understand. But then again, you still have to create that balance in your home environment,
'Cause after it's all said and done, I mean, that's not your whole life. You still
Mate, again, a thing I like to say a lot to people is I go, good race, bad race, everything rolls tomorrow. You didn't cure cancer.
Yeah.
No one's curing cancer out there. So don't get too obsessive and distraught about it. Like we're all going to have bad days and good days.
I remember an athlete you coached a professional athlete you coached a while ago, who then fell pregnant and then moved into having a family. And I remember you saying that one of her things that she didn't realise until she had a family was that there's this whole world outside of triathlon who has no idea what's happening in triathlon because she'd been so focused on triathlon for so many years.
High achievers
Yeah.
become very focused on what they've got to do, and this athlete, she actually way more articulate than I am, and she explained there's this bubble which is triathlon, and there's this bubble that's whatever. And she goes, when you're in that bubble, it's your world. But she goes, as soon as you step outside of that bubble, it doesn't even exist in a sense. And but her being what she is, and she's now being the best mum she can be. So she doesn't need triathlon in her life to fulfill her because she's got 2 young children, and and obviously they tick all the boxes for her from happiness and fulfillment and sense of achievement and accomplishment, and I suppose in some ways we all live vicariously through our kids. We love seeing them achieve, and it gives us happiness to see that. I think just keeping perspective is where the line comes between commitment and obsession.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice, especially if you're going to do some of these longer course events that they're going to take 15, 20 hours a week out of your time, or not even events, but regardless of what it is. Even trail running is another one. I know when I was years ago, I trained for this Wild Endurance 100, and the amount of hours you're out running every week to get your body used to go 100 Ks, it took a toll on people. Yeah, you're leaving at all sorts of ridiculous hours of the morning. So
100%.
Yeah, for sure. Mate, what do you enjoy about being a coach?
I think.
What do you get out of it?
And I get a massive buzz out of just knowing I've played a part in, and sometimes it's a really small part, and sometimes it's a really big part. In seeing people achieve what they are trying to achieve, and knowing that maybe they've achieved that to a better level because of my input. I think at a fundamental level, just like helping people become better, whether that's as an athlete or just as a human. I think a lot of what I do as a coach, not so much with older athletes, but certainly with the younger junior athletes, and that is part of your responsibility is to teach them to be good people.
Yeah.
Because, I go, mate, it doesn't matter how good you are as an athlete. If you're an asshole, then people are going to know that,
Yeah.
And we see that. We've seen athletes over time in sport who've been high achieving. We've seen a certain rugby league player was like that. And,
he wasn't a boxer as well, was he?
He was a boxer as well. And, but, mate, when like I go, you're getting it wrong when okay, you're always going to have your supporters because maybe they've got a similar mentality. But when more people than not think you're an asshole or you're a dickhead or whatever, okay, you're getting the balance wrong, So for me, I think it's important to install into the younger generation that it's about how you carry yourself and how you handle it around other people and how you handle defeat, You can be filthier that you got beat because that means it means something to you. But you don't need to carry on like a pork chop about it.
Yeah.
Because, like I go, you have to be gracious in defeat and in victory.
Yeah.
Because you need to show respect.
Yeah.
Mate, if I beat you today, Lucas, doesn't mean I'm a better athlete all the time. It just means today I was better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't bag you and go, you're crap and whatever. Because the next time when you beat me, I also can't carry on like a pork chop because you did beat me on the day you were better. Yeah. And I think when you set that standard for them, that's not about them not emotionally investing in what they're trying to do. It's about being able to control your emotions when things don't go your way. And you can only teach them that by exposing them to success and failure.
Yeah, and you need to enjoy the fact that there's other people out there who are at this level, because without this whole group at this high level, what you're doing doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, you don't get credibility unless you've got good rivals.
Yeah.
We see this in all sport. Matthew Van der Poel, Wout van Aert in cycling. These two guys, their greatness particularly in cyclocross, has been established because they had a great rival.
Yeah.
you know. So, and you know, there's probably an argument for which one of them's the GOAT in cyclocross. You know, they're also legends on the road now, but you know, so, but yeah, I think, you know, other things I enjoy is I like being able to piece together the jigsaw of each person's life and personality and that, and then trying to work out how to get the best out of them, because everyone comes from a different perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I think just seeing that sense of accomplishment and happiness when things go to plan for them and they're just pumped, and you know, like I'm pretty forthright with my athletes about I don't need kudos on social media and stuff from them. I go, if you achieve, that's your moment in the sun.
Yeah.
You know, but a little fist pump and a thank you, that's enough for me, you know, because you know, they're paying their money to be coached, and they've got to do the work, mate. I can give you the best program in the world or the crappiest program in the world, but if you don't do the work, you won't achieve. But if you go do the work, you'll still achieve, even if, you know, the program wasn't ideal. So
Do you get a lot of that? People not really following the program?
yeah, plenty, mate. You know, again, there's a lot of people who want to win, but there's a lot of people that a lot of those people also don't want to do the work.
So they keep paying the money, keep coming out,
mate.
and then they just don't do the work.
Yeah, you know, well, they'll do it and they think they're doing as much as they can, and you know, and then it's about trying to educate them to, you know, you've got to set your standard, mate. If you're willing to do 35 hours a week and you're doing everything and you have a bad day, yeah, you can rightly be upset. But if you've told me you're going to do 30 hours a week of training and that, and every time I look at your training program, you've done 15, don't come at me with the same goal for race day, because you're not committing yourself to the preparation. You know, and there's a quote, you know, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. You've got to do the work, mate. Particularly shorter events and things like that where maybe talent has a bigger impact. You can get away with it less prepared. You know, mate, if you've got a 46-inch vertical jump, with no training, you're going to be competitive on the local basketball court because you're jumping higher than most humans. But you ain't going to cut it at like NBL level or NBA level because you don't have all the other skills yet because you haven't done the work.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'll go to people, it's not about just getting fit, it's about being better at what you're not good at and things like that. So, but yeah, I just love that, seeing people achieve, particularly things they maybe thought they couldn't.
Yeah.
And I coach a lot of female athletes, and I think I see this in them, and this is the bit that I love about the psychology of the sports and being a coach, is for most of them, they, with the odd exception of the triathlete we were talking about a bit earlier, women lack a lot of self-belief because growing up, they're told they can't do certain things because they're a girl. You know, now, Lucas, you've got a daughter who's very sporty and very capable. I have a daughter who was very sporty and, you know, went to a pretty high level with her stuff. And I think part of why they achieve that is because at nowhere as parents or that are we telling them they're not capable of doing it. We're just telling them do the work and you can achieve, But I get a lot of more our age group generation kind of thing where they've grown up being told can't do this, can't do that because you're a girl, you know, this and that. So I've got to unlock that block in their head. It's not that they'll train hard and do everything, but they won't race like that because they don't believe they can or they should. But once you unlock them, that block, they're beasts. They're beasts, man. Like
relentless.
They're scary dominant, some of them, you know. And I go, so for me, there's a big psychological component to certain athlete populations.
So has the athlete changed then? In your, and I suppose you're compared to other people your age, you know, because there's coaches out there who started coaching in their 20s, right? So I suppose you've only been coaching for 20 years, even though you're 50, 53. In your time, do you think the athlete has changed?
So I'd say yes, in a sense. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. I think back in the day, the athletes that came into this sort of stuff, and I know this term might sound derogatory to the current lot, is they were more hardcore.
This is the Northmead Midnight Butcher Shop, mate.
Yeah.
You just say it how it is.
But
give us the James Sweeney.
But so I think they were more hardcore, as in you didn't have as much knowledge and stuff about stuff. So the people who decided to go do it were because they wanted to have a crack and they didn't give a shit. They said, I'm going to have a go at this. You know, I mean, the first Ironman, like 18 people. You know, so it's like it's crazy, yeah. Whereas now it's selling out and whatever. So I think what's happened is as certain sports have had more exposure. Ultra running is a good example. There's just the crazy lunatics that would go run 100K.
Yeah.
Now you've got 1,200 people on the course, you know. So what's happened is as it's become more accessible, more people are trying it. It's not that they've made the standard less. It's just diluted because you've got more variation in capability that's willing to have a go.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I think that a lot of the newer athletes into the sport, that's not necessarily just younger ones, just newer athletes into the sport, they're more serious about, I've got to do this and I've got to have this and I've got to have compression and I've got to do da. Whereas the older athletes were more about, I was going to go out and have a go and work hard. So, and the sense of adventure was bigger back then.
Yeah.
Like, just made
Well,
shit
when
up.
things haven't been done before, and you're making it up. So you're making your own level of hard. It's not like, I can just.
So I think there was less fear of failure back then, probably.
Yeah.
You know, people just wanted to just have a go, and if it doesn't work, I'll have a go again. You know, whereas now people feel like they've got to be so prepared and so this and so that, and
I can't start till I've got this.
yeah. And I think sometimes the sports themselves create that perception that has to be the case. You know, got duty of care and litigation of all this stuff. Yeah. So I think back in the day, people got into the sport to sort of live it. Whereas now there's a lot more athletes that want to tick a bucket list thing. You know, I'm going to do New York Marathon. So they train, they do the marathon, and then that's it. They're out of the sport.
Yeah.
So, obviously there's lots that stay in it. So there's that mix. But I just think that's where the dilution of that more hardcore components come, is just because more people are doing it. Not everybody has that same hardcore mentality.
Yeah.
Or they just want to pick different challenges. So, but physiologically, no, they haven't changed. We're the same. Dick Telford, who started the AIS, said to us on a coaching course a couple of years ago, he said, mate, human physiology is the same now as it was 100 years ago. He said, so what was valid in 1950 is valid today.
Yeah, right.
We just have more marketing and stuff around things.
So is that one thing that's changed? You're trying to, especially with the younger athletes and the older ones too, try and keep all the white noise out of the, you've got your program, just believe in the system and get into it, and park all the social media. One of the boys who I'm assuming from his from Kai, my young bloke reported that he'd seen his social media profile at the start of the football season, and it was a picture of an old Nokia flip phone, and it said, "All right, guys, signing off for the season. I'll see you after finals." And at the beginning of the football, because he plays for Penrith, at the beginning of the season, I think he goes back to an old phone that just it rings and sends a text message.
Yeah,
no social media. He just goes dark over that whole season, and it's footy. Yeah, and I'll talk to you on the other side. How cool is that?
I think it's important because the white noise is valid, that it's very distracting. There's two athletes on the pro scene at the moment, Gustav Eden and Christian Blumenfeld. They're very dominant at the pro level. I think up until just now, they held every major title between the two of them, right? So they're very dominant, and they very methodical in their training. They've got a team around them. They're Norwegian, and the term now is the Norwegian method, because you've got guys like Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who just won the world champs 5,000 meters. He's one of the fastest middle distance runners of all ever. And he's Norwegian as well. And, so there's similar training methodologies going on, and blah, 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 blah. But I think, when you look at it, the general athlete, they're buying Normatec, compression this and ice this and all of these things. And then they talk to the Norwegians, they talk to Gustav and Christian, and they go, what are you doing for recovery? And they go, drink enough water, eating properly, and we get enough sleep every single day. They go, what about it? No, nothing else is regularly used.
They sound like a sponsor's nightmare.
Oh, mate, I mean, hey, their technology stuff that they use, they've got their own company between the four of them, those two, their coach and one other guy. And mate, they use a lot of technology, right? But what they do is it's science-based, yeah?
All right.
Whereas a lot of what age group athletes and amateur athletes use is marketing-based.
Yeah. It's equipment, not.
But it's marketing-based, yeah? Like, so, if I tell you yellow paper's better than white paper and I can market that better,
Just tell me 10 times.
then you'll use the yellow paper, but the white paper might actually be best, but whoever marketed the yellow paper just did a better job.
Yeah.
So I think this is where a lot of athletes fail to do their own research, to understand. They just want the latest and greatest bling, and a lot of money gets spent on that.
Are you still using your Casio stopwatch that you...
I
You
do
still run
actually.
with your old Casio stopwatch?
I ran with it this morning. Yeah, so I had my GPS watch on to record my running metrics, but my old Casio, which is a Timex or it's an Ironman branded one, it just has I have a countdown on that beeps every minute and repeats, and I was doing minute on, minute off, so I just run with that beeping. So I go, old school still works, yeah. Technology is awesome, but you've got to do your own research and understand if it's valid for you.
Yeah, because you can get lost in it and spend all your time
mate,
analysing everything.
Power
when you're
meters are a
friggin'
good
age
example,
group
you know.
athlete.
Power meters have dominated cycling now, and people go, this and that, and I go, yeah, but are you even analysing it? Do you actually understand it? Because it's fine to see a number, but unless you understand how to analyse it and then interpret it for your future training, it's overkill.
I found it really difficult using a power meter on the road to ride in a zone anyway. Like it was
Yeah, it's
fluctuating
because it's
so much.
stochastic, so it bounces around a lot.
Yeah.
And and so
On
I
a
say
trainer,
no,
it's
as longer, steadier efforts, heart rate's a more valid parameter to work with. And there'll be people who will argue, heart rate drift and dehydration and temperature, and I'll go, yeah, but the reality is it's still telling you the cost of the effort. So if your heart rate's climbing, it's telling you the cost of this effort is getting higher.
Yeah, you're about to start.
So if you've only got
dipping
so
into
much in the bank,
Yeah.
you better slow down the withdrawal rate.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to get to the end.
Yeah.
So is this rather than the speed?
Well, you must use things in combination, yeah. But I would say for long distance athletes, I think heart rate is a underutilized parameter. Because if you're running at 4-minute pace and it says your heart rate's 150, and you do that often, so that's a pretty valid parameter for me, around about 150 beats, give or take a couple, at 4-minute pace. Now, if you turn up on race day, like on the weekend of the Sydney Marathon or that, where it's hot, right? Now you're running at 4-minute pace and it's telling you your heart rate's 159. You got to go, well, hold on, because of the heat, I'm working a truckload harder to maintain the normal speed. So you got to make a decision. If I have to keep running at this 159 pace, I'm not going to run the distance without cracking. But if I slow down a little bit, my heart rate comes down. Now I can maintain. So your speed has to come down. But when people use power or speed or pace as a number, they're not accounting for variables. Block headwind, 40-degree temperature, anything can change the cost of trying to make that objective number stay where you think it's supposed to stay. So interpretation and this and your own research and understanding are more important to get the best out of yourself.
Yeah, because when I got started, when Luke got me started at the beginning of the year, I think I trained for a couple of weeks, and I ended up getting the Garmin watch, which I quite enjoy. I quite like looking at the stats, what I'm doing, the improvements over the. I mean, I don't really know too much about it, but just seeing the small improvements each week, it really sort of keeps me going. I did good that week.
It's phenomenal, the technology we have available to us now. And I say utilize it and embrace it, but don't overthink it all unless you understand the numbers. Yeah, like the Norwegians, those boys just train. There's a team doing their analytics behind them. I can't do that. I'm not that smart. I'm not a sports scientist. I'm not an exercise physiologist. So all that diagnostic component is not my realm. Like I can look at it with more depth than you can as the athlete, but I like to keep it simple. I'll send you out for a time trial. That'll give us a number. Because you can get caught up with all this fancy stuff when the reality is for the event you might be targeting, let's say it's a half marathon, well, you go, well, at some point you've got to run 21K at a certain speed if that's your goal.
Yep.
Now, if you're not replicating that in training at points to see if you're on track, well, what are you doing?
Where'd you come up with this number that you're going to run in the race? Yeah.
I have people say to me, oh, this is the pace I want to run at. And I go, they go, I want to run 4:15 per K off the bike, I go, you understand that's a sub 3 hour marathon off the bike. And they go, oh, no, I can't do that fast. So why did you come up with 4:15?
Yeah.
Like they have. So what I mean is people don't always think it through. They just have a goal, a wish list.
Yep.
It's like saying I want to do X, but you haven't really. I want to go to Northern Territory. Okay, how are you going to do that? I don't know. You've got a roadmap. You've got a car. Like, so if you haven't actually done your background, how do you actually achieve the goal?
Yeah.
And so for me, with technology, it's understand your own capability relative to technology, and then only use it to that level.
All right. Well, so if money wasn't a problem, you had plenty of money, then what event would you want to be part of in the world? And that might be something not you racing in, but let's say you wanted to go to the Monaco Grand Prix, or if you had a heap of money, but I think you'd probably want to do something.
Yeah, so I'll put out a couple here because
we haven't got that much money, mate. I was just saying one event. No, go ahead.
well, I suppose if I listed them, then I'd see what your budget was, and then I'll pick the one that works. Yeah, but certainly Challenge Roth. So it's an iron distance race, but it's a different brand in the market. So biggest race in the world from a triathlon perspective, like in sheer numbers, they get about 3,200 athletes on the start line.
God.
Mate, they go to Solar Bird. Like the experience, I think, would be mind-blowingly good. A couple of the boys have done it. Bracey's done it. Curry did it back in the day, and a few others. And I go, it just looks like it would be just an epic experience.
And where's that?
So it's in Germany.
Okay.
And like it's so it's a 3.8K swim, 180K bike, 42K run. But it's a real fast course. There's a Solarberg, which is an uphill component in the course, and the race briefing says to you, don't stop pedaling, the crowd will get out of your way, and they just funnel you through. Wow. So it's just epic. It's stuff that you couldn't experience at another race. And so for me, I go, that'd be something I'd love to tick as something I've done. But if you said, I've also got Transcontinental, which is ride your bike from one end of Europe to the other, unsupported.
Oh, wow. Which way does it go? Trans, across?
Yeah, it goes just across. Okay. So what they do is they give you a route. You got to cover a bunch of countries and all that. It'd be epically hard.
Unsupported, you got to take all your own.
Yeah, you carry all your own stuff. You got to arrange your own sleeping, all of that. So the other thing I'd like to do, just because it's a fast course, is Berlin Marathon.
Oh yeah.
I just think it's where the world record's been set. For the last few times now with Kipchoge, the other GOAT.
Yeah.
If you want to talk marathon, Kipchoge's the GOAT. Just a phenomenal athlete. But if you say to me, you can only pick one, I don't care how much you love everything else. The budget says one. Doesn't matter how much it costs you, but it's one. It'll be Race Across America.
Is that a cycle race?
Yeah, so it's a cycle race. It's supported, hence why it's so expensive.
Yeah.
You have to follow cars with you and everything. But you start in Oceanside, California, and you ride across America.
Wow.
And first one to the other side wins.
What? Oh, so you've got to take your own support vehicles and everything?
Yes.
So
that's why it costs you. Yeah,
right.
so you need minimum of 2 support cars. You can have more than that, but you have to have minimum of 2 support cars. You obviously need people to crew the cars and also crew for you.
Yeah.
The record's like just over 7 days.
Far out.
4,500 K. So the distance is longer than the Tour de France.
Yep.
The tour is normally about 3,500 year to year, give or take. But it's 4,500 K, and it's start to go. You just go, yeah.
Churchy has just signed up in 2025 to ride from Canada to Mexico with one of his mates.
Wow. That'd be there you go. Wow. That's something.
And it's off trail.
Yeah,
it's a trail ride.
Yeah, so that's phenomenal, and that'd be things like that. You look at some of that stuff and you go, so money's not just the challenge here; it's time. Yeah. If I've got a job, I can't go. I'm going missing for 3.5 months to ride from Canada to the south of America.
Yeah.
It'd be, that's huge. But again, epically a massive adventure. So
just to do it, not even to try and get a particular time. Just
it's not a race. It's just a
adventure.
Adventure.
So I thought I'll throw a curvy in because you had what event would I do? And I'll go the other side. What event wouldn't I do no matter how much you offered me?
Yeah.
And I got to say things like ultra swimming, like things like the English Channel and things like that. And, young guy that I've had a bit to do with over the years, Michael Payne, he's a little Hawkesbury local. Him and his dad into the ultra marathon swimming and that. So Michael's like, he just swam the English Channel a few months back now as a 19-year-old. So first Hawkesbury resident to ever swim the English Channel. But mate, I couldn't think of anything worse, like he said to me, he goes, it wasn't too bad temperature-wise, he goes, there was patches where it was about 16, 17 degrees. He goes, colder years can be like 14 the whole time, and you go, one of the qualifying criteria to be eligible to go to do the channel is you have to have done 2 6-hour swims in water that's 16 degrees or colder.
Where do you do that?
Hawkesbury River in winter.
Yeah, right.
That's what he was doing and things like that. So I go, there's just nothing that appeals to me about that.
What did he say that appeals to him?
He loves it, mate. His dad loves it. They do right. Nest, they do this.
Yeah.
It's a challenge for him,
Yeah.
Whereas for me, riding my bike across America in sleep-deprived mode and everything, it appeals.
Yeah.
So different things float different people's boats.
Yeah.
So I just thought, there's things you'd love to do, but there's also things that you... Because somebody might look at my list of what I'd love to do and they go, that is ridiculous. No way.
For sure.
I'd rather poke my eyes out,
Yeah.
So...
I had another question. Have you got an athlete that you started coaching as a young kid who, maybe didn't have great self-esteem and then now, years later, they're just this focused beast of a person, who's sort of unshakable, because I think a lot of kids, especially young guys, they don't have great self-esteem, that early teen years.
Yeah. I think you could probably chuck a lot of them into that because I think there's a quote that says, sport doesn't build character, it reveals character. But I think within all of us, we have more mental fortitude than we maybe know we have.
Yeah.
We spoke about, prior to the online part, we spoke about, going to war and, whether people would be tough enough in the current generation. And I've always said, well, you don't know until the challenge comes at you.
Yep.
So I think sport has allowed most people to develop their whatever their level of mental fortitude is, to a much higher level. And I think that when big questions are asked of them, they have better self-belief and therefore they will push a lot further into the hurt locker before they switch it off, So, without dropping him in it, because not necessarily that he had no self-confidence or anything, but if I use someone like Sam Appleton, who I had the privilege of coaching for a short period there as a junior, and, before he went into the high-performance side of things and that, and then became a successful long course athlete. There's a young man who, grew up in, like just normal suburbia and, was sporty enough. He was a great little swimmer, but wasn't going to be like representing Australia kind of level swimmer and all of that. So what his self-belief level was at the time probably wasn't what it is now. It wasn't that he had none. It's just that it wasn't developed to the level it was where he's willing to go head-to-head in an Ironman or a 70.3 distance world championships against the best athletes on the planet and believe that he's capable of being competitive, if not winning.
Yeah.
And I go, that doesn't get developed unless you're doing things consistently day to day that challenge you and you succeed, therefore you believe in yourself more. So it's not a on-off switch, but I think someone like him is like that. Yeah. Whilst I didn't really know Craig Gordon as a young bloke, he was a soccer player doing all this, got into mountain biking or whatever. Mate, this is a guy who won a world title on a 24-hour mountain bike, beat the 6-time world champion, lapped him. That's the level he was at. Broke the course record by 4 laps, I think it was at the time, and couldn't even get on the dais. to get his medal because he was in an ambulance going into ICU in America.
He's gone deep.
And he was on a dialysis machine for 2 days because everything was shutting down.
Wow.
He went out for a safety lap and could only pedal with one leg because he had torn his calf 4 hours in.
What?
And just kept going, mate. His CK levels, which is your creatine kinesate levels, they're a marker in your blood for like muscular damage or even like cardiac damage. So they're a marker that are looked at, and if they're too high, that's a big red flag. And the marker for general public, I suppose, if you're at the hospital, is between 150 and 300.
Yeah.
In most training athletes, like if they tested mine most days of the week, when I'm in proper training, it's probably sitting in the low thousands, like maybe 1,500, 2,000 or whatever. I'm pretty sure Craig said to me when they tested his numbers, it was like 48,000 or something ridiculous. Like he was like Kaputski, yeah. Wow. And when you spoke to him, he goes, "Yeah, mate." He goes, "I'm in all sorts of strife." He goes, "But I rode the big dog and I smashed them." And mate, so if you said to me who are the two toughest or who are the toughest athletes I know, I'd say John McLean, Craig Gordon, and Andrea Forrest.
Yeah. Well, that's
like without a doubt. Well, if I threw celebrities in, Anna Mears.
Yeah.
But out of the athletes I know personally, those three, mate, they're,
can go to that deep, dark place and survive.
Guys like Trent Chapman and that, you could throw into that argument and a few others. But what I mean is those three in particular for me, I just watched them go to places that, like, oh my God, I don't know if I'd want to go there. Like,
I listened to this podcast. It was a Wise Guys podcast, and they had Billy Dibb, the boxer, on there.
Oh, yeah.
And Billy talks about this time where he went to this dark place in this fight, and he physically, mentally wasn't right for a year afterwards. He wasn't ready to back up the title.
Yeah.
I was just like, that's some serious respect if you can go to that.
Yeah, but and I really believe there's only a few athletes, even at the elite level, that can go to that level. Like it's a really scary space, for them to.
That's exactly how
when they can't comprehend and they're making bad decisions. Brad McGee was an example of that. Australian professional cyclist, one of the probably the best bike riders I've ever seen. He's just phenomenal on a bike. And he talks about finishing a tour stage in a break with Jens Voigt, and Voigt beats him. And they're interviewing him later, and he says and this is a mountain pass with no safety guard, like rails or anything there. So if you get it wrong, you're over the edge. And he said he doesn't remember the last 2 kilometres. It was just black. And I go, that's going ridiculously deep, yeah. But that was Craig at the 24-hour mountain bike, mate. Yeah. You tear your calf 4 hours in, most people are bailing, mate. He just kept going.
Oh, well, yeah. That's amazing.
That's what makes them who they are.
The greatest,
100%, yeah. So,
mate, have you got any books that you think people should read?
Look,
motivational stuff.
There's so many books out there, some really good stuff. Books I personally got a chunk out of.
Yeah, something that touched you.
Wayne Bennett, he's got a book called Don't Die with the Music in You.
Oh, yeah.
It was his first book that Bennett put out, and, whilst a lot of people think he's quite a cantankerous character, especially with the media, mate, I just look at the loyalty that all players that have played under him have for him, and I go, he must be a great coach and a great man. He's got a couple of disabled kids, and okay, he's not perfect. His marriage is broken down, and he's doing other things, but I think his insights to humans and human nature is great. And that book, it's only a little thin book. It's a really good little read. Matt Fitzgerald has a book out called Iron War, which is about 1989 Ironman in Kona with Dave Scott and Mark Allen. And it's not just a recount of the thing. He dives into a lot of stuff about that. And, when we talk about athletes that go to spaces that you've never seen, Dave Scott's probably a guy that you would put into that argument. Or into that category of going deeper than most people could even comprehend is possible. That book just gives a really good insight to different aspects of all of that. So that was a great little read. New Holland Publishing put out a book called The Anna Mears Story. And I think that if you want to talk about resilience and commitment and all of that, you know, I mean, this woman broke her neck, you know, and 6 months later she wins this Olympic silver medal.
Wow.
One Olympic cycle later, she wins the gold. And the book talks a lot about, in there, talks a lot about what she did to get to the level to win that gold medal against Victoria Pendleton, who pretty much had the wood on her in that sort of time frame. And made to the point where Anna said she loves chocolate, and most of her career, you know, she would give herself 1 square a day. That was her treat. And she said for 1 year leading into the Olympics, no chocolate.
Far out.
She goes, and I knew, she goes, 1 square. She goes, physically was doing nothing, but it ticked a box for about mentality.
Yeah.
And
that was her getting stronger.
that was her 1%.
Yeah.
This is what it's going to take. No stone unturned. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one, and there's a chunk here. It's female athletes, but the other one is Liesl Jones's book called Body Lens.
Oh yeah.
You know, Liesl, you know, she debuted for Australia as a young teen, and she got pretty harshly treated by the Australian public, or the media at least, you know, for not cracking and not being able to win. And you go, this kid's 14 years old, you know, and took her to her 3rd Olympics, you know, so you're talking, she went to 3 Olympics, you know, took her to her 3rd Olympics to win an individual gold medal. But if you read her book, you get an insight into just how tough that girl was and what she was willing to do to make herself better. And that was just phenomenal, yeah. You know, like, I mean, again, she's probably in the argument for GOAT of breaststroke, you know, that 100, 200 distance. She's just phenomenal at her peak. And then there's a book from Graham Sims. It's like a bit of an autobiography, or it's a biography about Percy Curity, who was a coach in Melbourne back in the day in the running, and it's the book's called Why Die, and he was a real sickly child and all that, and he made all these changes to his own life to become a better runner, and then started to coach. And he's one of his famous quotes is again, I like quote is, "You'll pass out before you die, so just keep running."
I was at a gym in the Hunter Valley there, not last weekend, the weekend before, and they had that written on the wall. It said, "Yeah, but did you die?" I thought that was pretty good.
It's true. Like, you know, I think this is how do you get the most out of yourself? You don't have the handbrake mentally. Like, you know.
And it takes a while to train that in
yourself.
Oh, mate. If it ever comes.
Yeah, if it ever comes, you know. My mate Gordo, I just believe, mate, he would be, for the people I know, he's that one athlete I think would go so much deeper than anyone else.
Yeah.
Like, he would die
Yeah.
to try and beat you. Like, he just wouldn't quit.
Yeah, wow.
You know, like, it's sort of scary.
Yeah.
But it's also pretty awesome to sort of be in that kind of company and just understand the clarity of their focus about what they're doing, and what it means to them, yeah.
Yeah, you certainly want him on your team if you're going to battle or you were.
Mate, if you said to me, pick someone to ride for your life,
yeah,
you know, I go, mate, he may not be the absolute best rider the planet's ever seen, but he's got to be one of the toughest ever. You know, I mean, mate, he was a teammate of Cadell's when Cadell was still mountain biking, you know, and he could climb, and you know, and so I just. They're those sort of people where you go, yep, you got to learn a lot from them in relation to just how they go about their business.
Yeah. Well, mate, we might do a little bit of a pivot.
Yep.
Talk sort of mental health. You know, you're exposed to a lot of different people, coming from all sorts of backgrounds. What do you think blokes are struggling with these days? And you know, do you have a theory or a solution? Obviously, we've spoken heavily about exercise being a good antidote to despair. Yep. I think this is a quote. What's your take on it, mate? What are they struggling with?
And I think there's a lot of things that men in particular are struggling with. But I think if I had to put an overarching sort of point to it, I'd sort of say I think a lot of them are. This is not so much the younger ones because they're still pretty, you know, all balls, no brains, and they haven't been scarred yet, so they feel a bit invincible and they carry on. But I think certainly maybe from your mid-20s onwards, I think it starts to become a situation nowadays where they're sort of struggling to know, or they're confused about where their place in society is. You know, if you do this, you're a sexist. If you do this, you're a masochist. If you say this, you know, you're being a racist. You know? And I think so. It's hard for them to be themselves. And I think people are judged. Men are judged more harshly, I think, than children, for sure, and more harshly than women. For anything they do that somebody decides isn't appropriate. But a lot of what we do and how we say it and all that is our upbringing, yeah? You know, if you're brought up in a loving home and you never got smacked or anything, you've probably got a gentler nature in general. But mate, if you're up in a house where every day you're smacked across the back of the head and you're told you're a piece of shit and all that, you grow up with issues, yeah? And that's the only behaviour you know. If there's a confrontation, you're smacking, right, or whatever. You're not negotiating, you're punching out or whatever. So, and I think society, like certain aspects of society don't ever account for the frailties of the person. So you might say something that somebody doesn't like or they think it's inappropriate, and maybe it is, but you're not necessarily doing it to be mean or you know, or vilify somebody. It's just what they know. And I think so and because it's now with social media and everything, I think the outing of those kind of things is so much bigger, and so guys become unsure. So suddenly they're second guessing everything. And I think that
What about fatherless homes where, you know, guys, you're being brought up so you don't have a good role model? Do you think that's playing a part?
I think
it
plays a part in certain areas, but like, I mean, a good example I can give you is, you know, I've dealt with juniors that don't have a father that's actively in their lives, but I'm a male coach and
you're a good male role model.
You can show them stuff, so you can be a male role model for them. And I think if you're in that position as a male and you're around some young people who don't have a father figure in their life, you can take on a role around showing them
it's
about
your job.
kind of
Do
stuff.
you think it's your job to step up?
I think it's all of our jobs, you know. Like
Everyone's
there's that saying, you know, it takes a village to raise a child, and you know, I go, yeah, just because you know you're a young bloke, you can't talk to him about something, but you know, Sweeney's a good man. I might just say to Sweeney, hey, do you want to have a yarn to him? And, you know, or say to a young bloke, mate, go have a yarn to James. And, you know, and because, you know, morally and ethically, I'm going to be on the similar page to you. And so I think you can sometimes those other male mentors in their life can play a really important role if their dad isn't around.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I think that's really important, you know.
Yeah.
But I think also collectively, a lot of us have to stand up for this fake outrage.
Yeah.
You know, I'm offended culture. And I think, you know, because in my view, it's who yells the loudest gets the most attention.
Yeah.
You know, so Greta Ginsburg's yelling like a pork chop and the world listens to us, and now suddenly she's a celebrity. Why? Because she screamed like a spoiled brat. Maybe some of what she was screaming about had validity, but you don't need to treat people like shit to get your point across.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I'm challenged on something that I've had to say, I stand up for it, and I because I don't say it without having a defensible position.
Yeah.
And I learned that as a coach. If I'm telling you to go out and do something and you say why, I need to be able to justify why. Otherwise, how can I expect you to go and do it?
Yeah.
So it's the same. If I say something to somebody and they don't like what I'm saying, I still need to stand up for that. And I need to educate them further that, you know what, when old mate over there is saying it to you, he's saying it with a good intention. That I don't, you know, and I think so. In some ways, we've got to readdress the balance a little bit in that scenario. I mean, I'll give you a really simple example. Growing up, I was like super skinny little kid, yeah? I was just that little scrawny kid the whole way through, right? Anyone they like could tease me about being skinny. The moment I called someone fat, oh, you can't say that. And I go, well, it's not my fault I'm skinny, but they're punching down a whole bunch of KFC and go to the shop and getting chocolate. That's why they're fat. But I'm not allowed to say that to them, but you could call me skinny. I didn't choose to be skinny. So this is a thing, you know, where you can't even use the word fat. You've got to use obese, or you've got to, you know, whatever.
Overweight.
Overweight, or, you know, or you can't say anything at all. And I go, okay, there's no need to say it because they know they're fat. So you don't have to say it or whatever it is, right? But don't avoid difficult conversations just because they're difficult.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to, like, my coaching philosophy is you've got to be harsh but fair.
And call out the elephant in the room. If there's an elephant in the corner of the room, there's no point sitting here and pretending there's no elephant.
Correct. I've always been that way. Like I go, you got to clear the air on those side of things.
It's not going to do anyone any favours.
No, mate. You know what? If I need to tell you to race your best, you're going to have to be leaner and skinnier. Then I need to say that. That's not me bagging you about the size you're currently at. It's just saying if this is your goal,
I don't want you to.
You
have
can't
an eating
achieve this
disorder.
goal if you're not at this kind of numbers.
Yeah. I'm not trying to give you an eating disorder. You've written
No.
down here you want this goal.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that you need to get leaner.
Yep.
Yeah.
You need to lean up. You know, you don't have to be X weight. You need to be at a point where it's all working or whatever. So, and it's the same with other things. You know, you got to say to them, well, no, this is how it is, and this is where it's coming from. It's coming from a place of good to help you be better.
Yeah.
You may not like what I'm telling you, but it doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah, I've had that conversation sometimes around the rugby league too, you know, women's rugby league, because girls want to look a certain way on the weekend, but then you want to play a sport where you're actually going to have full-on collisions and you got to try and take down someone who's maybe 40 kilos heavier than you. Well, you can't look like a bikini model and take down this chick who's running at 28 kilometres an hour, weighing 105 kilos.
Yeah.
Like you've got to have some muscle. You've got to be strong.
Yeah, no. So for me, I think that's where guys are so. I mean, not just men. I suppose any human doesn't want to be ostracised, right? So people are nervous to say something that might get them ostracised from that social group they're in or whatever it is. Yeah, and I think once you get old enough, you basically don't give a shit. So they just say it. You know, old people just say stuff in your life.
Yeah, that you definitely notice that the older.
They just call it, mate. Just call it as they say it. You know who does that? Old people and little kids.
Yeah.
Little kid walks in and goes, "You're fat."
Yeah.
Old person goes, "Geez, you're a bit chubby." Everyone else in between is like, they're all thinking it, but no one's saying it. Yeah. So I don't want to keep using the weight thing, but it's just a really easy example.
Yeah.
You know. So, and I think too many people give fake compliments all the time,
Yep.
whereas I don't give compliments a lot, and my athletes will tell you that. But if I do, then they know it's valid.
Yep.
And I think that's part of where, for men, the way to know your place is to know yourself and understand what you're trying to take out of whatever you're about to offer, and where that's coming from. And if it's, like I said, if it's a defensible position, you're sweet, because it doesn't matter if, you know, somebody who identifies as a furry starts carrying on at you because you said they look like a chubby furry or it's ridiculous. You can defend the position, yeah, because you know. So all of these things, I think, we need to stop pandering to the minority groups who yell the loudest.
Was that the last furry you saw? A panda? I had, totally off topic, but I actually had a dream about a panda last night. Let's move on.
Yeah, because bestiality is best boys. But yeah, I just think that, you know, if we start to give voice to the majority who are normally silent, you know, you watch this at political election time, yeah. The media's telling you how this party's going to do this and this and this, and because they're doing all these talking to people, but they're talking to people who are all of the similar ilk. So they're all saying X is going to get in, and then suddenly, Y does it.
Yeah.
Why? Because the silent majority who aren't saying anything, no one's actually finding out what they think.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, from a social aspect point of view, we're discussing, I think they keep quiet because they don't necessarily want confrontation.
Yeah.
I don't want to even argue with some random guy in the street because his view's different to mine. I don't care.
Yeah.
Your view's different, mate. That's fine. So I just say nothing because then I don't have to have the argument.
Yeah.
But I think on certain things we have to show solidarity and stand our ground and speak up, because that allows everybody to have clarity and it allows society to be better for it.
Yeah.
You know, like I just think at the moment, and it's not across society, but at the moment in certain areas, the lunatics are running the asylum.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think until we help to balance that up a bit, we're always going to struggle to know our place.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's important. I think if you come from a place of love and care most of the time, so your comments aren't. I'm not actually not trying to hurt your feelings, but please don't make me. I can't pretend that things aren't real.
Correct.
So I'm going to live in the realms of reality, you know. And if we're having a discussion about something, if what you're saying is not real, or as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't fit the.
But ultimately, it's not what you say; it's how you say it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you know, my old man had a quote that I've always enjoyed, and it says, "Diplomacy is the ability to tell someone to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip."
Yeah.
That's
So-
fucking fantastic, isn't it?
So it's
James has brought all the good quotes.
So it's like, but I think that they're those things where you can deliver a really hard message that's the truth, but you can deliver it in a caring way.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you sugarcoat it and you
No.
bullshit it, but you can be caring about it
Yeah.
until you. And I think to do that well, though, you also have to judge your audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I've got to get better at that. It's not something I do well.
yeah, look, mate, and I didn't back in the, and I still don't at times, because if I'm passionate about something, I'll just speak it and I go, you know what, if you don't like it, it's your bad luck. But I've learned, particularly as I'm dealing with a lot of the younger kids and the juniors and that in the sport, sometimes you've got to give them like a hard truth, but you just have to smooth it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know,
For instance,
it's not the rough end of the pineapple.
Why do you think that? You know?
And open-ended questions, understand them, and then approach them.
Yeah.
Because once you understand the person you're talking to a little bit better, you probably can formulate an approach that you know will be good.
Well, I think like questions rather than statements is the only way to have a discussion.
100%.
You know, rather than me just tell you something.
Yeah, you've got to talk to people, not at them.
You know, ask you a question, and then we'll talk about the point that I want to get across.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, you're encouraging the conversation to go two ways. If you just say a closed question or a statement, then they have to then either say a statement or then they've got to ask a question.
Or they've either got to agree with you or they've got to start an argument.
Or leave.
And I think particularly when it's kids, like you need to ask open-ended questions to encourage them to tell you what they're thinking, not you telling them what you think they're thinking.
Yeah, or encourage them to think full stop.
Yeah.
Because they might have said this because they saw it on TikTok,
Yeah.
or they might have said this because someone else said that.
Yeah. Just
Or
what they
saw it
were
on the
told
news.
before. So,
But they actually haven't put any thought into it at all.
and I've said this to a few of the athletes who are now probably in their early 20s, but I'll say to all of them, I go, become a critical thinker. And that doesn't mean be negative. It means if you're told something, think it through critically. And if it doesn't make sense, question it.
Yeah.
And if it does make sense, think, okay, what are the variations? So, because if you just re-spruik that and it's not valid, you're going to look silly.
Yeah.
Or, you're going to be called out for it. So I go, but be a critical thinker. Just because something was always done a certain way and that's the way you've always been told doesn't mean it's right
Yeah.
or it's still right.
For sure.
We used to drive without seatbelts and smoke cigarettes while our kids are sitting in the car
When did they outlaw that?
generations ago,
Well, that was still going.
Yeah. So, so it wasn't wrong back then, but we just know there's a better way to do certain things now.
Yeah.
So it's the same. If like young person goes to uni, they're learning something, they're going into a career. A lot of what they're learning at uni will be invalidated by new research and findings in the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? So just because they know it doesn't mean it's always going to be the best answer.
Yeah.
And things evolve. So that's why I say to them, you must be a critical thinker constantly and always trying to learn.
Because most people are guilty of you. Once you're getting in the groove, look, let's use uni as an example. You learn all these things while you're at uni. Get out in the workplace, then it becomes a grind. And then you do no further education on those topics. And I think, like, nursing and doctors is probably a good example. You know, once you get into the workplace, there's not a lot of training going on there. No. It's just go, get it done. Things change. You know, if that person's keeping up with a medical journal, you could always question where those studies come from and blah blah blah. But my point is, I don't think once you're in the field. So for instance, if you're a nurse for 20 years and you're running on what you learnt back in 20 years ago, methods have changed. You know, you got new grads and other nurses coming through who are probably learning a different way.
Yep. Yeah. What about a simple one? Look at a knee reconstruction 30 years ago.
Yeah.
They cut your whole leg open and you're out for 9 months. Now it's keyhole surgery, bang, bang, and you're out in a day.
Yeah, hip replacement. You're up walking around in
that week. So everything, evolves and progresses and, so you might do something that works, but doesn't mean there's not a better way to do it, like that works even better.
Yeah.
And I think there's a few studies that show what you learn first is what you believe strongest and what you hang on to.
Yeah.
So even if I told you the wrong thing, if that's what you've learned first, you actually struggle to change your view. A lot of people do.
Yeah, I've got to tell you 10 times the right thing before you start believing
before
it.
you start. And there's always this part of you that... So that's why I go, for me as a coach, particularly with younger athletes, it's really important to be mindful of how I express stuff to them, and I try to explain it to them so they understand it. And I'm still now, if I'm not sure, I just say, look, I don't know. I'll find out, come back to you.
Yeah.
Because when I was in the printing industry, that was the first rule. Don't bullshit them.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they'll know, and then you've got no credibility. Whereas if you go, look, I don't know, I'll come back. Just come back to them with the right answer. And then you're good. You've got credibility. So...
Yeah, do what you say you're going to do.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else, any other messages that you feel are important to get across for young people, get across for athletes?
I'm a fan of, it's a quote as well, but it's something I've had for a long time. But it's
don't ask the next question. Please leave us with your favourite quote.
I've got a couple. But yeah, be positive or be quiet.
Oh, yeah.
I think unless you, and you know what, it doesn't mean that you've got to pat someone on the back all the time, but sometimes it's better to just leave it alone than being negative about something the whole time at them. It's fine to point something out, which you could see as a negative, but then if you offer a solution, now it's a positive.
Yeah.
So, and I particularly say this to parents of young athletes. I go, be positive or be quiet. Leave the coach to give them critical feedback. You just encourage them. Be their cheer squad. Mm. They want to have fun, so let them have fun. And it's the same if you've got a junior person in your workplace. Yeah. They're trying to learn and everything. So if you're positive with them, it's like your little puppy dog. They want to learn more because it's a reward. But if you're negative with them, it's a punishment. So then they don't want to anymore. Mm. So, yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I felt when I was training under you, you had a pretty good read of where I was at. Like you could tell. And because my sense of humour, so you know that you can give me shit. But I think you had a pretty good read on when it was okay to give me shit, and even give me shit in a give me a tune up kind of way, and other times when I was maybe just not in a good place.
Yeah, just leave it alone.
Just leave it alone.
And that's about knowing. It's about learning about the people you're dealing with. Yeah. Not just your athlete. In my case, it's the people you're dealing with day to day, whether it's your family, your friends, your work colleagues, whatever, and then being able to pick the right moment to be funny or cheeky or whatever, or you know what, to be empathetic to them and to be able to help and console. Because sometimes, I mean, I've said this earlier, we all have our demons from history and we're all battling, and in some way at some time, and sometimes those demons are coming hard. Yeah. That's not the time to be a prick. But you have to be able to read that person. How do you read them? By having understood them previously.
Yeah, having conversations.
Understanding what's going on, mate. I mean, some people have had pretty tragic upbringings and they're strong people for it. It doesn't mean they're invincible.
Yep.
Then other people have had perfect upbringings with no trauma, so therefore they don't know how to deal with trauma because they've never had to become resilient because and it's not their fault. It's just they had a beautiful family upbringing where there wasn't a drama.
Yeah.
So, and I go, when you deal as a coach or as a boss at a job or whatever, or just as a person within society, you're going to come across all of those variations, and you got to be better.
Yeah. 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 Good conversations, I think, is how you get to know everybody.
100%, mate.
You know, ask plenty of questions.
And listen, at times someone starts, you've got to know it's time to shut the hell up and just listen because they're about to. And mate, I've had this with some people who've had some pretty big tragedies in their life. And when they've come to me, and the comment they've given is, I can't believe you just sat there and let me. And I go, well, what was I going to do? Tell you what you're supposed to be thinking when I don't even know what it is. All I know is it's really serious.
Yeah.
And it's not I broke my nail or my bike got scratched or something. It's serious, dark stuff, And I go, you have to be there for those people. That's why I don't like the "Are you okay" thing on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone just
What a waste of-
You
what
know
a waste
what?
of time.
If you're in a bad space, you're not putting it on Facebook and saying,
No,
"Oh, Lucas,
that's
can you
right.
talk to me because I'm in a bad space?"
I know.
What you've got to do is about look at your mate or your work colleague in the eye and go, "This person looks terrible today. Something's going on," and just take them somewhere private and have a chat. What's going? A little quiet word, Maybe they may not reveal anything, but you've done enough to maybe turn the corner for them. Like, mate, I'd hate to think that I ignored somebody and they've gone and committed suicide or something because that's the space they're in. Because I was too self-absorbed, I didn't notice they were really in trouble.
But you did update your status that day with an "Are you okay" banner and a thumbs up.
Got a thumbs
and a
up,
ribbon.
got 50 likes on my post.
The best thing you can do is be ringing your mates all the time. So stay in touch with all your mates.
Speaking of ringing your mates,
It's because it's family that's coming through.
yeah, it's all good.
Got anything else, mate?
No, I think that's about it. I think we've hit probably the 2.5 hour mark. It's,
Yeah.
we've done good.
Yeah, I know.
And it was pretty easy as well, which is good. Like
Time flies in the
It gets
Northmead
going.
Midnight Butcher
There
Shop.
we get yarning.
Yeah.
You want a couple of quotes before I go?
Yeah.
yes,
Whatever.
please.
All right. So here's a few of my, I got a truckload, but there's a few of my favourites. So one that's actually on the back of my hoodies for my work is work hard in silence, so let success be your noise.
Oh, yeah.
So, a lot of people
Nice.
carry on, but I go, just get about with it. And when you succeed, you don't have to big note. Your results speak.
Yep.
So Gilles Reese was Andre Agassi's strength and conditioning coach, and basically his coach as well. And this is when Andre had gone down the ladder to way out of the top 40 or whatever. And Gilles got him going and everything. But one of his quotes that I loved was, "Weak legs command, strong legs obey." So I thought, so it's about preparation, Get in there and do it. And then another one was, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you will be successful.
Yeah.
And that's about commitment, And
Whose was that quote? I've heard that one a couple of times.
Eric Thomas was the guy that I've got it from. The one that was like an anon, which I just like it, and I actually had it on a road ID. It just says, "Don't bullshit yourself."
Yeah.
So, and I coach over time. I've coached a few para athletes, and obviously John McLean's a good mate, and and John was a guy who you wouldn't use the word disability in front of. You would just say physically challenged.
Oh, yeah.
Because maybe he swam in the English Channel, Malulakai rough water paddle, Ironman, all of this stuff. You're not disabled if you can do that. You're just being physically challenged.
Yeah.
And so the quote I like is, "The only disability in life is a bad attitude."
Oh, yeah.
Good one.
So
That's a cracker.
So one at a more emotional level, and we talk about mental health and stuff. I go, love is not what you say, love is what you do. So you can tell people you love them, but if you don't show them it, do you really?
Yeah.
Or are you just ticking a box to take the pressure off you on the day?
Yeah.
But being there for people when it counts, that's where it's at. And then one that my mate Gordo actually sent to me and was it's not his quote, but he found it and he liked it. It said, adversity causes some men to break, others to break records. So, and if you ask Gordo, how many bones have you broken? He goes, "I'll tell you how many I haven't broken. It's a shorter list." So he's been through plenty. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, they're just some of the things that I suppose try to live by to some extent day to day.
They're great, mate. Thanks for visiting the Northmead Midnight Butcher Shop and
Thanks for having me, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. If anyone wants to contact you or get some one-on-one
If they just ring
coaching.
my personal assistant, Lucas, they'll be all over it.
website
Look, if someone wanted to check in, I suppose the easiest way would probably be to send me an email.
Yep.
It's just Coach Sweeney at bigpond.com. And that's Sweeney as in SWEENEY.
Yep. We'll put that link down the bottom of the description.
Despite me having a business and a business name and everything, I'm not actually on social media at all with it. Yeah. So they won't find me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever because I'm not good with that stuff. So,
No worries. So good old Big Pond.
Yeah, so I've just had it forever. Like
Website or anything? Or
no, nothing. Yeah, so but
Right,
if they send me an email, I'll get back to them and give them some info or whatever. And go from there.
Beauty.
Good stuff.
All right, James.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks, mate.
It was a pleasure.
Wow.